And we're live.
Oh,
that caught us a bit of a surprise.
Yeah.
Hi guys.
Guys.
Hi guys, welcome to our 38th live YouTube session. As you probably guessed, it's not a Friday, and as you probably can see, we're not in the brewery. So we are actually in the Mustache and Monocle today. So if you don't know what that is, you obviously aren't members on the Facebook book group. But we're in Pete and Kerry's. It's not a shed; it's an outer building.
Most definitely not
It's
a
definitely
shed.
not a shed, and you're going to see some. Well, hopefully you've seen some good footage to prove it's not a shed. It has a toilet, which I'm going to need later on. So it's definitely not a shed.
at least 3 times probably. Yeah.
And so welcome to our subscribers and everyone else who's joined us from home, and welcome to our live audience, where we actually have a live audience. As you probably saw from the intro video, and that kind of caught us off guard because we were watching the intro video and didn't realise we'd started.
Because there was a slight timing delay, so we were still watching it. And they went, "Oh, you're live." Yay.
We're in Grimsby today, so we've taken the journey across the Humber Bridge, and we're in the like I said, Mustache and Monocle. So we talked about this a while back, and it's taken us a couple of months to actually make it happen. But we're here, and we're going to go through the 4 different beers, and hopefully you're going to be able to join us at home, or you're going to be able to watch back at the weekend. Maybe a topic of conversation for later on when we talk about what days we do live streams. We haven't got any collab partner today with us. We've done a couple of collabs this month. We've done one with Simon from Real Ale Craft Beer. His YouTube numbers blow us away when we work with him. So he did a live stream in our tap room beer garden the other day, and I think he had about 200 people join him on a Thursday night, just from going live without any notice. That was pretty crazy. And then the video got about 3,000 views within the first few hours. So I think we'll probably beat that tonight. So I'm confident.
But then Simon's also put together a video from the Brew Day that features Nadia, one of our brewers, and John, one of our other brewers.
Nominee for Young Brewer of the Year.
Nadia, if you happen to be watching, congratulations again, because you've been shortlisted for Young Brewer of the Year.
So we're really proud of what Nadia's achieved since a short time at being at Brew York and a short time of brewing, and it's great to see that she's been recognised for that and shortlisted. So fingers crossed in October she'll win that award.
So before you go on, we've had one comment come up already from regular contributor Ian here, wishing Kerry a happy birthday. Because
thank you very much.
Coincidentally, we've managed to coordinate this to land on your actual birthday.
30th birthday.
Yeah, yeah, I was.
So we've got a couple of cool beers to drink tonight, including a stout. It's a Divine Coffee Intervention. If you want to grab that out of the fridge now, it's going to taste better when it's warm. So give it a chance to come up to room temperature. We're in an air-conditioned pub at the moment, so we might have to hold it under our armpits.
Yeah, and if you look at the aircon unit behind us, you can see everybody behind the camera.
Oh yeah, a secret mirror on the camera.
Yeah, everybody waving. There we go. Perfect.
So if you like the video, if you like the content tonight, please subscribe and click the like button. We want to try and improve the videos every time we do these. So we like your feedback, and we try and work with that. So what's the running order tonight?
You said which one to get out of the fridge. You've done that bit.
Done that
I
bit.
missed that. Right, good. Nice. Yeah, so first up, we're going to be having this beer that Wayne's about to pour here. So Hop Sessions version 2.0. So a hop changing pale where we keep the grits the same and change the hops each time, always staying at 4.5%. Then we've got the long-awaited return of X-Palate, which is our tropical fruited IPA coming at 6.5%. That's at a hiatus of 2 and a bit years. And then we've got one of the few beers that we now consistently release annually, which is Kirsch Russell, our 6.5% cherry pie sour. It's always a good point in the year when that one comes back. And then we finish off on the one you've been told to get out of the fridge, which is called Divine Coffee Intervention, brewed with a coffee roasting house near to us called Divine Coffee. And with them, we've made a coconut espresso martini stout. That's the latest in our cocktail-inspired series. Also in the pack, you would have got a beer called 7 Seas with Rye, which is a beer conceived by one of our brewers, John. The 7 Seas is 7 different sea-named hops, so like Columbus, Cascade, Centennial. I'm not going to try and list them all because I will definitely get that wrong. And the with Rye it's quite common in a more West Coast style beer to include rye to give it a bit more of a kind of caramel kind of colour. So that's another kind of bonus you've got in the pack this month. What we're going to be doing each time is we'll be talking about the recipe for each beer. If there's a story behind the name, the kind of production approach, anything that's unique about the beer, anything that we think you might find interesting, we'll go through that as we talk about each beer. And we need this to be as interactive as possible. So questions from in the room are very welcome. Online, you can get your questions in by typing below this video on YouTube, and then Pete will screen them behind the camera, and then he'll pop them up as he's just done with that "Congratulations, Nadia" comment from Daniel Sawyer, and then we'll answer them to our best of our abilities. So we're going to be going through a specialist subject with each beer. We always start out with highlights of the month. So usually me and Wayne saying what's been our personal and work highlights of the month. Obviously we have some guests this time. So your 5-minute warning, you're going to be asked what your highlights are of the last month. Okay. We're going to be talking about beer journeys. We've all got.
I've got to cut you off here. Just a second. At work, we have to have a special seat for Lee in our meetings because he moves around so much. And he's like, it's like squeaking and creaking. He's like rocking around. So this is going to focus.
I gesticulate a lot and I fidget a lot.
So at some point, when I get to go to the toilet, I guess we'll do a seat shuffle and he'll end up on one of them.
Yes. Just keep reminding me, and I'll do my best to sit. I will forget. So the second subject is going to be beer journeys. I think if you've watched for a while, you're probably familiar with mine and Wayne's journeys, how we got into craft beer, etc. I thought it'd be interesting to hear about someone else's craft beer journey. So was it what beer got you into it? Was it a specific brewery? Was it a specific person that inspired you to get into craft beer? So you probably got about a 15-minute warning on that particular subject. So we'll come to that. And then I think as someone's already alluded to in the comments, yes, we are going to be talking about the impacts of the recent duty changes. I know that's kind of a dry subject, but it does have a very big bearing on what's about to happen in the beer scene. And I'm sure you'll want to know what that means for in terms of Brew York's production approach and what beers we may continue to do, what we might not do, or what we might have to dial back a bit. So more on that coming soon. And then we always conclude with what's coming up. So what beers you'll see in the box next time and what events you can find us at around the country. Okay, so finally, any feedback, or you want to be in the audience, or maybe you want to host, as Pete and Kerry are doing today, you can get your feedback into info@brewyork.co.uk. And I'm genuinely trying not to move, so this is still good.
The harder you try, the more you think about it, it's going to be even harder. So a little bit about the first beer we've got. So anyone who's tried the first in this series, Hop Sessions 1, hopefully you'll recognise a little bit about the base malt backbone of the beer. It's relatively simple. We tried to brew a New England IPA, so a hazy beer. So we've got Pilsner, flaked oats, malted oats, dextrin actually for a bit of residual sweetness, flaked wheat in there.
Disappointingly for you, no chit.
No shit malt. No. My favourite malt. So every time we brew this beer, it's going to taste very similar in terms of the backbone of the beer. The ABV, the strength is always going to be 4.5%. But what we're trying to do is find hop combinations we really like, try out new hop combinations with all the different latest hops on the market. And this one, it's got quite a nice peachy taste. It's Strata and Simcoe. So Simcoe is one of my favourite hops. It's been around quite a long time. It's American hop, really popular.
And Citra.
Oh, Citra's in there as well. So it's Citra, Simcoe, and Strata. So Strata's a relatively new hop. We have a fair bit of this on our contract we were talking about this morning. So
yeah, I need to use some more of it. You might be seeing some more Strata-based Brew York beers soon.
What was the name?
We've just done a collab with Tooth and Claw,
that was it.
Which is called Into the Stratosphere.
So yeah, Strata-based puns are always welcome, so we can bring out some new hop changing beers.
I think we had loads. We had the whole team come over.
Stratisfaction.
Yeah, can't get no Stratisfaction. That was one of them. There was lots of them. I think we had a few in reserve that we might do for our next Strata-based beer. So we probably shouldn't mention them unless someone else makes them.
Keep them under wraps until it comes out. And then we've got a New England yeast in this, so it doesn't fully ferment all the sugar, so you've got a bit of residual sweetness in the beer. So yeah, it's interesting. I think I find it really easy drinking. I preferred Hop Sessions 1, if I'm completely honest. I think Hop Sessions 2 is nice, but I think the first one It's my personal
What was
preference.
the hops in one?
I've
put you on the spot.
Yeah.
I mean, we should both know that.
I
I
know.
can't think.
So someone from home tell us what hops were in Hop Sessions 1. It was
You should have had me
Was
label
it
book.
Strata and Nectaron and
Nectaron.
Mosaic? Strata, Nectaron. No, it wasn't
Someone
Strata.
tell us if it was
No, it was
right.
Nectaron, Mosaic, and something. Anyway, right. You put it on screen for us now, Pete. I just saw you typing something there. Right, anyway, we'll come back to that particular
We've
bit.
got the label somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, but
We've already brewed 3 and 4's about to be brewed, isn't it? So there's lots of different combos coming up, but we want your feedback as well. If you guys particularly like a certain combo, let us know. If there's one you really hate, let us know. And we're going to keep changing these varieties up. We contract for our hops years in advance. We need to make sure that we can get access to the certain varieties that we use in our signature beers, the beers we brew all the time. And in doing so, it's really hard to predict what the market's going to do. So we basically try and lock in a contract. We say we're going to need, I don't know, half a ton of that particular hop this year, maybe 3/4 of a ton next year. And in doing so, we lock in the price, which is also quite nice. But it comes up with a Sabro.
That's why you couldn't remember, because you blocked it out because you heard that.
But it was very subtle Sabro. It's Sabro in the kettle. So when we first introduced the hops into the beer, we did it in the boil or the whirlpool. Sorry, on that one, which means when the sugary liquid is being boiled, we then cool it down and then we whirlpool hops through it to get some flavour and aroma coming through. We transfer it into the kettle, cool it down completely, add the yeast, ferment the beer, and then introduce hops again at that later point. And those are the dry hops. And the dry hops in that one was Mosaic and Nectaron.
Yes. Yeah.
So Sabro's a bit of an enemy hop for me. If it's used in the dry hop, I don't particularly like it. But in that case, Hop Sessions 001, I quite liked it.
Yeah. So we've kept the grist the same, but we have actually changed the yeast this time around. So what we're trying to do with this beer in part is to find our perfect hazy, our perfect low ABV hazy beer, because we might be looking for something permanent to come from this. So we're changing the yeast. The grist we're pretty settled on, and we're changing the hop combos, and then hopefully down the line, this might become an established beer that you see Brew York regularly releasing. So the yeast we've used this time round is not as tenuative, and what that means is it doesn't chew up as many of the sugars. So it finishes sweeter. And in this type of style, that's a desirable characteristic. You're wanting something that doesn't have masses of bitterness. You wanted something that does finish quite sweet. It's supposed to be really kind of an entry-level beer. That's why they're very kind of reminiscent of like fruit juice, I guess you would say, in consuming them. Okay. What's our verdict on the beer at that end?
I preferred number one.
Yeah.
Having said that,
it seems to be disappearing quite.
Have a word with your canning, because I only got half the can, I think.
The leak in the glass.
Yeah.
So at this point, we're always going on to the highlights of the month. And I think you've heard enough from me and Wayne already. So I think we'll jump straight in with Pete and Kerry. Who wants to go first?
Kerry does.
Apparently so. Oh, my highlights of the month. Well, going back into July, because obviously we're only in August at the minute, barely in it. So my highlight was I work in a school. We're on summer break, so to me that is my highlight. Yes. So, but
no
yeah,
kids. Yay.
Exactly, no kids. So yeah, and a hot tub outside, which I've been making use of
Nice.
virtually every day. So yeah,
Even with the rain?
it's under a gazebo.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, even with the rain. So and it's wet, regardless, isn't it? So.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my highlight, and obviously my birthday today.
It's my birthday.
And you guys been here. That has got to be the highlight of the year, let alone of the month.
It's been a long
So
time coming there.
it has, yeah. Yes, we have, yeah.
How long ago do you think we first spoke of this?
Crikey. God, I don't know.
I
From
think-
the 6th birthday bash, we talked about it then.
Yeah,
and obviously
okay.
the 7th one,
I think it was one of the live tasting ones.
yeah.
So it was probably
one of them.
18 months-ish?
Yeah, it must be,
It was,
yeah.
it was not long after we'd finished it.
Yeah, which it's been
And,
done
yeah.
approximately about that now.
We-
I think it was a
we kind of-
conversation after one of the tastings. It's a way
Yeah.
to remember it.
Yeah,
I think we pinched the line from Field of Dreams, the Kevin Costner film.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like,
If you build
if we build it, they will come. Yeah, something like
and they did.
that. So, yeah.
So yeah.
Also used in Wentworth.
Oh, yeah.
Which I watched again the other day. Yeah, that's a little bit dated.
No.
But still a classic.
Yeah, no, I still enjoyed it. But
Yeah.
some of the comedy is not what it once
Yeah.
was.
You mean
If
your
you're
humour's
cringing
moved on?
more at it.
Yeah, I think my humour's moved on. It's funny that, isn't it, with comedy? Like, you can watch Monty Python's, and I think that's timeless. Or you can watch Faulty Towers, and I think that's timeless. But other comedy, like you watch some of the Harry Enfield, for example, and I find that that was very much of its time, and it doesn't really work so much today.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So anyway, Pete, your highlight.
Well, you nicked them all because I was going to go with. Well, I'm on holiday this week, so that's great.
Yeah.
And then the main one, Brew York. I sat in our bar, so that's probably the highlight.
We're feeling
top
very
highlight.
privileged.
So yeah.
I've got to
Well,
say.
we're feeling privileged because we forgot our glassware, and you guys brought all the glassware. For us.
Thank you very much for inviting us.
Thank you.
We are
Yes.
thrilled to be here.
Oh, lovely. Thank you.
I think the video, as good as it was that Pete did at the start, I don't think quite did justice to what you have here. This is a real palace of a home that
Oh,
you have.
thank you. Thank you.
As I said to you before we went live, I don't know why you ever bother going out.
We don't.
Because you literally have everything that you could ever need here.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. It's. I think we get it from when most people, like to say, they've seen either videos or photos on Facebook or Instagram, but when they actually come in, it's usually the first word is "wow," because I don't think they get it, from the pictures and video. They just when they get in here, it's just like, wow, And to be fair, I still say wow when I come in, and it's our bar. So, but yeah, it's we love it, and yeah. So thank you.
As much fun as possible in it.
Yeah, I mean, Wayne has a home bar, and then me being competitive as I built a home bar, and I'm sure Wayne would admit it's a level up from what he'd done. But this is totally next level. I've never seen anything quite like this as a home bar before.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, mine was a bin shed that was in the house when I moved in. I converted it into a bar.
To be
I was
fair,
started
yeah.
off. It was going to be a shed. I was going
Yeah.
to buy a large shed, and then the plan was like, well, that won't be quite big enough. So
Yeah.
I went, we'll buy a summer house type shed, and then it was. And then we started like marking things out. Well, if you've got a settee,
Yeah.
and then, and it's like,
Once you
we
think
need a
it's bar in
room.
there, all
Yeah.
the fridges.
And then it just
Yes.
grew and it grew and it
You've
grew.
done what I do with every purchase. But if I spent a little bit more, what could I get?
Yes.
And then if I spent a little bit more again, what could I get?
Yeah. That's definitely it. Yeah.
And then before you know it, the garden shed has become, a palatial bar.
Yes.
Okay, so back on subject. So I think that's round to you, Wayne.
Highlights, personal highlight. So Sal, my partner, ran a 10K on Sunday. So first time she's ever run anything like that. So
Well done, Sal.
went
Woo!
down.
Well done.
Super proud of Sal
That's
after
fantastic.
seeing her sister run that last year and going down to watch it. She felt the challenge, and it was difficult because obviously in our line of work we end up out drinking a fair bit and having to sacrifice that and trying to focus on the training and stuff. So she's done an amazing job. So that was really cool. And that was just this Sunday. And then we managed to go out and celebrate afterwards, which was nice.
I ran about 10 yards just over a week ago, and I'm still limping.
It's amazing how
Right, no, we don't do that again.
Yeah.
Drunken me decided that at the age of 51 and 16 stone, thought he could still sprint.
No.
And apparently I can still sprint, but then I'm going to be limping for the next god.
Yeah.
I've torn something, I think. I don't know.
Well, we live and we learn.
Well, we
maybe
hope.
don't. Maybe we don't.
I'm not sure about the learning bit, but into the next.
Work highlight. It was a lot of fun. We went to GBBF last week, Great British Beer Festival. It was really cool catching up with lots of our peers in the industry. Not so cool, the Prime Minister almost pouring our beer on the bar near us. We were glad that he went for a different beer. We didn't even know he was there, to be fair. We were just too busy chatting to some of our peers, having a lot of fun, and then next thing we know, we leave, and then looking at the news, like, oh, we were still about 5 meters from him. I didn't realise he was there.
Well, when we do the duty bit later on, we might touch on the idiocy of his appearance at that festival again.
I saw a picture of that pint. That bit of head, did that represent the VAT he's now charging you?
Yeah.
Somebody photoshopped that photo so quick, made the lady stood behind him give him side eye, and then photoshopped a load of head on the pint. it was brilliant how quickly somebody did that because everyone was sharing it and everyone genuinely thought that was
what you did. So yeah.
So yeah, that was my highlights.
So my highlights. So personally, I've had my Texan friend Travis over. He comes over once a year, and he spends the rest of the time kind of collating beers from across the US. So he's got kind of a network over there where he exchanges, or he goes and he brings across US beers that don't get imported into the country. So things we're never going to see. And he rocked up with about 20 of these things. The weakest of which was 11%.
Oh, wow.
And then I tried to get food at 9:10, and it turns out the kitchen had closed at 9. So I think we know how that particular evening ended. I remember about 2/3 of the beers, put it that way. But it was a fantastic night. I think it was probably the best bottle share we've ever done. And then work-wise, I've got a couple. So I was lucky to go and do a collab with Tooth and Claw, which is the pilot brewery of Camlan's. And whilst there, we got to have a look around Camlan's Brewery, which is one of the oldest and one of the largest independent ones in the country, up in Hartlepool, if I didn't already say that. Such a spectacular place. Some real highlights to it. Like you're walking into this one bit of the production area, and there's a street sign that says Silver Street. And it's because at some point in time they bought the entire street and then just put a canopy over the top to expand their production capacity. And loads of other kind of things like that were absolutely incredible. And then we poured at the Northeast Brewery Showcase the day after, where I managed to catch up with Ian here and his lovely wife. And
now you're building a pub in Newcastle.
It was once again mentioned.
Yeah,
And it
I thought it
remains
might
on the
be.
agenda, but no further on the agenda. And I would say, finally, it's been a real kind of proud moment for me and everybody in the brewing team and in the management team to see Nadia get shortlisted for Young Brewer of the Year. So congrats once again.
Yes,
Nadia.
yes, congrats, Nadia.
Oh, and there she is.
Oh, I bet she appreciates that.
Pete with his technological wizardry. Easy for me to say. Right,
So, how are we doing for? Oh, we're early. We're early.
I'm not
That's
finished
never
this
happened.
one.
So we have some questions.
Have we got any questions before?
A couple, yeah. Just bear with me 1 second.
I saw one from Simon. It said his highlight of the month was going to Buxton Tap Room and Thornbridge Tap Room, which I very much agree with. That'd be a pretty cool holiday. You get to do some walking and go see some really cool tap rooms.
So Ian has clearly misremembered our conversation because he said that I said we're opening a bar in October.
Tom Tugger.
Yeah. So Tom Tugger, do you do anything special with supermarket beers that allows them to survive being stored on shelves at room temperature? So no, there isn't anything special we would do beyond all of our standard QC procedures. So we have checks in place to ensure that all the sugars are fully fermented out. We hold every beer for 2 weeks before it gets dispatched. It's held at a warmer temperature. So if there was going to be extra fermentation, we're trying to encourage that to happen. And then we check the beer again after that 2 week period before it goes out the door. And that means all of our beers, not just those going to supermarkets, should be shelf stable. And then beyond that, we do annual due diligence, one of which is we would send our canned beer to an external laboratory and they would shelf life test it for us. And they basically put it in a warm cupboard. And for every week it's in that cupboard, it represents a month stored at ambient temperature. And then every week they tell us what our beers would be like a month on. And they do that for 12 consecutive weeks to represent a year's worth of shelf life. And they'll tell us if the flavour has started to turn or if anything has started to grow. And thankfully, they mostly come back after 12 months saying your beer is broadly as it was when it first went into our incubator.
Yeah, we know that beer tastes better than when it's stored cool. Keep the beer cool, it tastes fresh, and the hops fade really fast. We don't have any hoppy beers in supermarkets, so we our beer, the beer that we put in, the beer that we see most often in the supermarket is Juice Forsyth, which is our tropical IPA. So the hops that go into that are very much masked by the fruit we put in it. So the fruit's the bit we're worried about on those beers, and that's where we do most of the shelf life testing and QC procedures to make sure that the fruit doesn't continue to ferment and it still tastes good in the period of time it's there. In an ideal world, all supermarkets would have fridges and all the beer would be kept in the fridges, but we can't change that. We can't influence that at the moment, but we can try and encourage them as much as possible. But it's a big investment. So you're not going to see many supermarkets doing that, unfortunately.
But like you said there, Juice Forsyth has fruit in. It's our biggest selling beer. It's in all 5 major supermarkets, and we've never had secondary fermentation in can.
Touch wood.
That's laminate.
Yeah.
Laminate 66
Yeah.
with beer.
Go for the oak.
Go for the oak.
Cheers, dude.
So,
Do we have any more questions, Pete?
Yeah, got one more. There you go.
So, from Natasha Curden, how was the Northeast Brewers Showcase in Hartlepool? It was a good event, unfortunately somewhat subdued by the absolutely appalling weather. It peed down all day.
Lee was happy because you had a pint of bankers, didn't you?
Oh, yeah.
Strong arm bankers.
Strong arm, yeah. I had quite a few of them, actually. Yeah, unfortunately, it did impact the attendance because of the weather. So the rest of us brewers entertained ourselves by drinking each other's beers.
So for anyone who doesn't know, a bankers is a traditional beer in Hartlepool where the landlord pulls half a pint really fast and really aggressive, cask beer, really fight.
Do you know the history of it, though? They told me.
It's like a worker's drink.
Yeah, it's because back in the day, you might have had the miners all knock off work at once, and that's like 200 people that arrive at the bar at once. So for the bar staff to conceivably pull 200 beers at once, everybody would have been waiting for the beer for quite a while. So what they did was they half pulled the beer and they had them all lined up. And then as the people came in, they finished them off. And that resulted in it having a bigger, foamier head. And it was called a bankers because you had one in the bank. But it was also kind of called that because you didn't pay for your first beer, because that would have tied things up at the bar as well. You went away, you drank your beer, you came back, and when you bought your second beer, you paid for your first one. So you had one in the bank. So that's why it's called the bankers.
And it does look really cool. You've got to do it at least once in your life, but it's definitely not the best way to serve that beer. The tradition bit kicks in, and you think, "Oh, that's amazing." But I'm sure a well-kept pint of strong arm would be poured best.
I enjoyed it, but there literally is no way of drinking it without getting the foam all over your face. Which is part of the charm, I guess.
So I think it's probably time for the second beer. Let's if we are ahead of schedule, which we are 3 minutes.
Let's read a final question because I'm still finishing this one.
Yeah, we've got one more.
Pete's been sat with an empty glass for ages now.
So Adam's commented there that he used to work around the corner from Cameron's and has pulled many a pint of bankers. So Simon Parsons, I was pleased to see Big Eagle in my local Asda yesterday. Is that going to be a regular fixture or a one-off?
You called me out, haven't you, for me saying we don't have the hoppy beers in the supermarket? I genuinely forgot we have Big Eagle in the supermarket. Yeah. Sorry. So yeah, Big Eagle West Coast IPA
went live maybe 3 months ago, something like that.
It is going to be a regular feature in Asda. So yeah, hopefully you'll be able to enjoy that there. And the shelf life stability again tested like we do with the other beers. The major difference, I guess, for me here is that is my own experience, probably your experience, and a lot of people's experience of drinking American hoppy beers. When they first really were prominent in the UK, they were imported from America. They weren't very fresh. We tasted these things that blew our mind because they were so different to what we were getting in the UK at the time. And what we were actually tasting was quite old beer. And it still tasted great to us because we weren't quite that as used to tasting fresh beer. So in my eyes, the worst that happened to Big Eagle was it might taste a little bit more like an American beer.
One, which wouldn't be in the world, would it?
In reality, the beer should move quickly.
But, yeah, back then we didn't know any different. It was coming across on unrefrigerated boats, and that's quite a long journey. So that's high temperature exposure for a while. And there was also an element of if it was really good, the Americans would have drunk it. A lot of what was getting over here was the stuff they'd not been able to sell.
Well, the other real thing, if we're going to go back, is the history of an IPA and how that beer originated and the journey that used to go on with the temperature control.
Are we going to go down that
but
rabbit
no,
hole?
not going down that rabbit hole with the next beer.
If you really do want to hear about that, ask the question later when we're stalling on the questions. Because we could do a good 10 minutes on that one, I think.
So the next beer up.
Next beer, if we pass that along.
Yes.
We'll stop pouring it while you start finishing your beer.
Yeah,
Because
well,
I've got to talk about it as well.
I've got to talk and finish my beer at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, you talk quickly.
So I'll just start off a little bit. So X-Parrot, by the way, is the beer we're on to next. So if you like Rubicon or fruit juice, hopefully you'll enjoy this beer. So this was one of the first collabs we did, going way back to 2016, possibly.
Early
2017. It was a beer we brewed with a brewery from at the time called Errant Brewery from Newcastle. Unfortunately, they were one of the casualties of the recent crisis where lots of breweries are going out of business. So, fortunately, you won't see their beers anymore. But this is one of the beers we brewed with them. Lee will tell you more about it because it's actually his beer.
Yeah, so like Wern said, we first brewed it in 2017. And I think we brewed it once or twice since, but it's been a good couple of years, if not a bit longer, since we last brewed it. And the reason we've kind of resisted brewing it is we kind of replaced it, I guess. We brought along Juice Forsyth, a fruited IPA at 5%, to go into initially supermarkets, albeit its appeal has gone a little bit wider than that now. So having had that 5% one in the range, we didn't think the demand would exist for a 6.5% one, albeit a probably more potent one in terms of alcohol and in terms of its fruit character. So we therefore think it's not one we could do every year, but I think if we bring it back every now and again, it can still stand up alongside Juice Forsyth.
It's also the most frequently requested artwork we get, so people make wallpaper out of it. So,
I agree. You should bring it
was-
back now
Yeah.
and again.
I think for our personal palates we would, but what we've come to realise is just because something's sold out quickly for us doesn't necessarily mean it has for the independent businesses we've sold it onto. And then this has got a 9-month shelf life on. So if we then 12 months down the line re-release it again, it might not have disappeared off their shelves all that long ago. So we find that the appeal isn't there to do it immediately a year after, unless it's something truly, truly special, which is a link to the next beer we're going to do. Kirsch Russell, the demand is so high for that. We have to do that year after year after year.
I think a big challenge with this beer is, especially with the cost of living crisis and energy bills soaring, and people trying to be a little bit more careful about how much they spend. Unfortunately, the fruit that goes into this beer is very, very expensive. We've dialed it back a little bit in Juice Forsyth because we had to make the beer a little bit more accessible in the price point. But you can taste the difference in the fruit content in this beer, and unfortunately, that ends up making the beer cost more. So I think it's really nice for a treat. If we bring it out, if it was an annual release, then it'd be great. But
if you look at the colour, you can see how much mango's gone into it for a start, because that's the major component of the colour. So if we talk about the fruit that's gone into it, so talk about the broader production approach. So we use Citra and Mosaic hops, so they're known to be kind of citrusy, kind of tropical. So that's the foundation of the beer. That's what makes it an IPA. And then on top of that, in the kettle, we've zested a silly amount of limes and grapefruits, and the team have to do this manually. Probably a reason that we only do this every 2 years, because that's about as frequently as they can start doing this. I think it's something like 200 limes and 75 grapefruits that we have to zest and juice. And then that goes into the boil. And then once we've fermented out the beer, towards the end of the fermentation, we add 900 kilos of mango, guava, and pineapple. So yeah, almost a ton of puree has gone into this particular beer.
And all of that fruit that we add has fructose in it, so fruit sugar. Fruit sugar is fermentable, so it wants to keep on going. So the yeast kicks back in, carries on trying to ferment. So it takes a long time to brew as well, because we don't want to package it early. The fruit continues to ferment, and then you've got an exploding can. So,
yeah, and part of the risk with fruit, particularly purees, is because it's not been kind of macerated or churned up, the fruit cells are still intact. So if the sugars are outside of the cell, nice and easy for the yeast to get at and ferment it. If the sugars stay inside the cell, it's possible that that cell may later pop and release its sugars, and that's how you can then get secondary fermentation and exploding cans. So it would be common to use what's called a pectinase, and it's an enzyme that digests the cell walls to make the sugar pop out, and then you can ferment it and eradicate that risk. So the other thing with fructose is it is fermentable, so the sweetness that you usually associate with the fruit is lost because it gets fermented by the yeast and turned into alcohol. So if we didn't do something to then sweeten the beer, it would be kind of like the fruit that you know, but not exactly like the fruit that you know. So we use lactose, a dairy-derived sugar, to replace that sweetness. So you get the fruit character, but then you also get the sweet finish as well. And I know that's not the most inclusive if you are on a vegan diet, that's unfortunately not going to be suitable for you. But we find it is the best thing to use to kind of replicate that sweetness. Yeah.
Cheers to that.
Yeah.
I'm putting this out of my reach.
It's quite
because-
easy to do, isn't it?
Yeah,
Very easy.
very.
to do.
Do you have a low grain built in because of all the sugar? Because of all the sugars from the fruit.
So we've just had a question in the room, which is, do you have a lower grain bill? Yeah, so
Please
you'll
do,
find,
please
yeah,
ask.
please do
Can we just
question.
repeat what you're saying?
It's just people on camera won't have heard, so we have to repeat your question back. So yes, we do use slightly less grain. For a puree, typically about 15-20% of the mass you're putting in is the sugar content. So it tends to dilute it in the same kind of ratio. So you don't have to add too much more grain to compensate, if any. If you are using concentrates, and concentrates are typically a 4-to-1 ratio. So if you started off with like 100 kilos of 400 kilos of cherry, it would create 100 kilos of concentrate. Those, they tend to be about 65% sugar. So that's a lot of sugar you're putting in for not a lot of mass. So for those, yes, you would have to use substantially less grain to try and achieve the same strength of beer. And that's what we've done with Kirsch Russell. With Kirsch Russell that we're doing next, it's a 6.5% beer, and just over half of that comes from the barley. Around about half of it is directly from the fruit.
And one of the things we get asked is, how come we don't use real fruit? We do use real fruit. We get someone else to do the processing of it for us. The reason we don't just add fruit directly to the fermenter is because of we don't want any infections. So you've got to sterilize and make it safe to use. Whereas the fruit producers that we use already do that work for us. So the different concentrates and the purees, it's already been antiseptic.
Aseptic. Yeah, we have to have aseptically prepared fruits and concentrates because fruit out in the field is absolutely covered in wild yeast and other undesirable things that would do very naughty things in your beer. If you have mixed firm beers, all the kind of nice Belgian sours, that's what they're about. But that's a carefully managed process. If you don't know what you're doing with that stuff, it can totally destroy your beer. Hence why we have to work with aseptically prepared fruits. Okay, so I think we'll move on to beer journeys now. I hope you've given it a little bit of thought. You've had a whole sort of 15 minutes.
I'm bringing it.
So we started with you, Kerry, last time. So please, I think we go to you first this time. So where would you say it started? Was it a location? Was it a beer? Was it a person?
Onto craft beer?
Yeah.
I don't know, because I've probably already been drinking.
So you ordered the wrong beer and you
No,
didn't like
I
that.
think I've always liked cask. Cask has always been king to me. But it wasn't always available. So I don't know. Don't drink their beer very much now, but I think one of the first ones that kind of popped up on my radar was probably Brewdog when they started. They started introducing flavors and things that I'd never had before. I guess similar to you guys' journey, they were doing things which were maybe mirrored what was available in America. So I guess that's probably where I first started getting into what we would call craft. Up until then, I've always loved cask beer and real ale.
When did Brewdog start? Was it
2007?
I think it was because Thornbridge was 2005.
Yeah,
No,
there was
2002.
there were probably other ones out there, but they just hadn't come across.
Because Martin
I
Dickens
crossed my
started out
path.
at Thornbridge, didn't he?
Yeah,
And
I mean
Francis on
Jaipur.
that.
Oh my God!
Oh, yeah.
Thornbridge was 2005.
Yeah, we've got a beer mat in front of us that says
Far on it.
Bar Runner, sorry, that just so it was 2005, and then I think a couple of years after that was Brewdog.
Yeah, exactly. Martin Dickey was at Thornbridge, helped with Jaipur, and then moved on to Brewdog, set it up with James Watt. And
Although they seem to pretend that he was never at Thornbridge and he had no involvement in that beer.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's true. I heard that the original Punk IPA, and I don't want anyone to sue me for saying this, but was just a stolen Jaipur recipe.
I heard similar,
Yeah.
but I guess we should say that is speculative.
Yeah.
Speculation, yeah. It's
We're not
all
know for
all
certain.
hearsay.
Allegedly.
Allegedly,
Yes.
exactly.
That's the word I was
Allegedly.
trying to think of.
Yeah.
Allegedly, yes.
But yeah, I mean, with craft beer, I still can't remember. There's certain things you go in and like West Coast, East Coast, and all that. Like, I can never remember which one it is, but I like them all, so that makes it easy. I just sometimes get a surprise when I order one thing and I'm expecting something resiny. You're going to get something really fruity, but either way, it's a winner.
Well, I mean, that's quite the blurring of the lines these days.
Unfortunately, a lot of breweries' interpretations of an East Coast. You go in, sorry, West Coast. You go in and you order a West Coast, and it's like you're expecting something clear, maybe a little bit of colour to it, and piney and bitty, and it looks like the first beer we tried tonight, which is the hop sessions. It looked like hazy. It really shouldn't be like that. You can use the hops that bring the resinous and piney flavours, but you need to make, in my opinion, you need to be a bit more purist about it.
And I totally agree. And there's certain breweries that do it all the time, but I'm too professional to name them, but they do annoy me.
Yeah.
I don't think you strictly have to stick to the style guidelines on every beer, but there are certain things.
I've never been one of those people that say, "Oh no, you must do this and it must do that," and there's a certain criteria for every single beer. There's got to be a little bit of leeway. People do different things, and I think my main bugbear within the craft scene is session IPA. Isn't that just an APA?
We've
If it's sessionable, it's not an IPA, then is it?
Yeah, well,
so it's a hoppy pale ale, so it's an American pale ale. I ain't got a problem with that. But having said that, I've got a fridge full of it.
And people get quite funny about that.
But I mean, I'm not nerdy about it. I'm not going to like blow me top, but at the same time, I was just kind of looking and go, oh, yeah, okay.
We've done a few things in the past to provoke some people that may have similar opinions. We call them the style police. And we once did with North Riding. We did an IPA.
Double IPA.
No, it was an IPA.
I thought we did
and it was a typical IPA strength, so 6-7%. And we called it a session dipper.
Yeah, I like that.
And then obviously Twitter Untapped exploded, and we're like, great, we got the reaction we were going for. We knew he would feel like this about it. Right. Kerry, what about you? Is there anything that springs to mind?
Well, my beer journey started because of Pete, basically. I mean, I was growing up and into my teens and 20s. I suppose I was a cider drinker. Never was a lager drinker, and then Pete one day introduced me to that old black stuff, the pint of Guinness. And so my beer journey literally started from that and just went on. Now, you may have seen I do have rather a few tattoos to the whole one or two to a certain beer of a goblin style, let's just say. Obviously not the craft style, but was my love for a long time. Obviously things have changed greatly with that brewery right now, which is, I still like the beer, but obviously they're not sending out the beers that they used to. But other than that, I mean, I love all beers. From me sours to me dippers to me IPAs. In fact, somebody years ago when I used to have my sours,
I hated sours.
He hated sours.
Hated sours.
He was
we were hoping we'd get
yes. I think he was the one that
I used to
actually
think, why are you
posted
wasting all that barley?
Yes.
Making it when you could be making
Yeah.
ex-sour.
Yeah.
But then you guys cured me.
Yeah.
And that was on the live tasting with Katie Berry. Yeah.
So that's part of your beer journey, though, isn't it? So it's not just where you start; it's where you progress.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
from that
And
point.
now I actually find from someone who hated sours, we walk in somewhere and I'm looking at the beer menu and I'm like, oh, I forgot sour.
So how did you get into sours then? So you maybe started a
Katie Berry with the pastry sours introduced me to
and
them.
then from that you've
And now, yeah.
This is one of the things we actually tried to do a little bit of. Personally, we love sour beers and we love fruited beers, and a pastry sour is a little bit more accessible because it's got lactose in, so you get a bit of residual sweetness that counteracts the sharpness and the sourness. You got vanilla in. Vanilla tends to remind you of cakes and desserts and gives you that. It makes it a little bit more accessible as well. And then the fruit as well. Sour beer usually does have fruit, but all these things work well together to make it more dessert-like, and that's why we call them pastry sours. And they just tend to be just more accessible than your more traditional sour, and they're not too sharp. We can do that. We've done an amazing collab with a brewery called Pastore, and that's really good. But it's really sharp. The lemon's really intense, and it's absolutely lovely. So, is it in the box this month, or is that next month?
I think there is one. Yeah.
I think it might be.
It's got slightly different to your normal can
Yeah,
art.
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
a really, really cool
Yeah,
beer.
it is. Yeah, it's in this.
And that's
in
the
Dalton.
extreme of a pastry sour, which I love.
Yeah, it's a Sicilian lemon cannoli sour.
That's it.
Yes, yeah.
It's really, really
Sounds
cool.
amazing. Yeah.
And,
We haven't tried it yet.
and I'd like us to do a few more like that in our own place, in our own brewery. So they're make them really sharp and sour.
It's beautiful, but
Test
Wayne's
the
right.
total
It is very sour. It's definitely not what you would call an entry level sour. You would progress up to being able to drink that particular one, but it would be worth the effort. It's a lovely beer. And what about you, Kerry? Then, so you started out on the black stuff. Where did you then go from there?
Hobgoblin.
Yeah, Hobgoblin.
And then,
From there, and obviously they used to bring out lots of beers quite regularly as well.
What's the matter, Lager Boy? I love that.
And the
Yeah.
the t-shirt. Oh, yeah, poster as well. Yeah.
They're like,
Afraid
you are
of a
my
bit of
number one
flavour.
guys, obviously. And this is going to sound quite strange to everybody, but I do have a bedroom that is full of Hobgoblin merchandise.
Yeah, the back bedroom
Yes,
is.
yes.
Hobgoblin
We call it
Yeah.
the Hob Room.
Well, I spotted you queuing for this building as a hobgoblin queuing.
Yes, well, that's Witchwood Goblins.
Is it?
Oh,
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Witchwood Goblin.
Yeah,
That's
No,
the
it's not
group.
the same.
Yes, that's my group. The group that is on Facebook and got nearly 6,000 members on it. It's been going for quite a few years now. But it's all sorts of beers. It started off with just Hobgoblin and stuff, and obviously all the different variants they used to bring out. But now it's all beers. In fact, it's usually spirits and all sorts as well. Especially over COVID times when we used to do Zoom chats and it was like a night out, but obviously you couldn't leave your house. So we all went on Zoom and we had our drinks and stuff, and it was fantastic. So, but yeah, I forgot what I was going to remember right now, but yeah.
After Hobgoblin then led to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much. If we go in a supermarket, I would like look at the new beers and we'll get them, we'll try. Which is why the sours come in, because I will try anything and usually like it. Watching Pete's face when he didn't like sours was hilarious.
Oh,
and
yeah,
that was
think-
half the fun for
Yeah,
me.
I
was
think
just
half,
to get him to
half the
drink
fun
it.
why Kerry used to buy sours. So she'd go, try this, and then watch me go like, wow,
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
But now it doesn't work
No, it
because
doesn't
now
work
I'm like,
anymore, no.
thank you very much.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
My wife does that. She absolutely detests hoppy beers, but every now and again she'll reach over and have a sip, and
And
then she
then-
go,
Ooh.
"Well, you know you're not going to like it.
But
What are you trying?"
She might change. There might be some
Yeah,
difference.
Liam over there, our son, same.
Yes.
He's getting hoppier, but yeah, some of the really
try and pull me
resiny.
into it, but
Yes.
Yeah.
when,
Watching his face screw up when we give him something like Imperial Eagle.
Yeah.
Oh,
right.
yes.
Yeah.
It's the resin.
The piney resin.
that's,
Yes, yes.
When I don't know if my mum's tuning in tonight, but we have this thing me and my dad call it the weasel face.
Very complimentary.
So sorry, mum, but and that wasn't necessarily a sour beer. We just passed her a beer that she wasn't sure about. She'd pull her face and we're like, yeah, the weasel's out. She didn't like that
Yeah,
one.
that's a no.
And, yeah, especially with sour beer. I think my mum and my dad are quite converts now. My dad wouldn't say it out loud because he only likes to drink Maris. But yeah, things like Kirsch Russell. It'd be tasty, probably because it's got his name on the can. But yeah, it's quite funny to watch how someone who just used to drink John Smith's. I mean, that was it. And then,
Yeah.
how we like try some of our beers now, and some of the stuff that we completely wouldn't expect him to like, he really likes. So it was nice
So
to see.
if you're talking about proper beer, where I first started, like first going out, probably shouldn't have actually been in the pub. I think my first pint was a pint of Bass Mixed, which was half and half, Bass
yeah.
Bitter and Bass Mild, where they just do it in the thing, and that was, I don't know.
Is that a Grimsby thing?
No, I don't think so. No, I think a pint of mixed was a regular thing, and yeah, best bitter and mild mixed together. You know, with a spile on as well, with the thing, and yeah,
black and tan as well.
black and tan is
yeah.
I think is mild and
Guinness.
Guinness, I thought.
oh, is it?
No,
No, I thought it was mild and what was it?
Someone will tell us
Brown ale, which would have been normally be
another
bottled.
task for the online audience. Educate us
what
on
is
what
called
black
black
and
and
tan
tan.
is. If you don't know, somebody Google it and tell us.
These beers are getting quicker, aren't they?
Yeah. See, I put mine deliberately out of reach because I knew I would next time.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we've highlighted a point for me there, Pete, which is it's hard to pinpoint when the craft beer journey
Yeah.
started for any of us, because when did craft become a thing?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, in America, there is actually a definition of what
There's
craft
definition of
is.
what it is, and
You've got to
you
be
know
under
what
a certain
happened.
size. You can't be owned by.
But when did we
Whatever.
have craft beer in this country?
I don't know.
I would say my first craft beer was probably a pint of Rooster's cask beer because they were using American hops as long ago as 25 years ago.
Mm.
But at the time, did I know I was drinking craft? Absolutely not. I was drinking cask beer that was a bit fruitier than some of the other beers.
Yeah.
I think the true craft origin for me would maybe be with Thornbridge, with Jaipur. But they weren't the first, as I've said, to be using American hops.
No, for me personally, I was a horrible, not horrible. I wasn't horrible, but I used to drink lots of
You
lager.
were a lager drinker, weren't you, Wayne?
Just because when I went to university, I kind of felt that's what you needed to drink because it was cheap and accessible. And then realised that, I'll tell you what it was actually. My divergence away from lager was wheat beer and Weiss beer. So Kronenbourg Blanc and Hoegaarden. That kind of moved me away from it, and then it went from those beers to Anchor, Sierra Nevada, Thornbridge, Brewdog Punk, and then more and more like hoppy and interesting. Well, for me, interesting stuff. So I would probably lose the Weep Steak tonight, but I can't get to the toilet because there's a queue. everyone else lost off camera, but I'm going to lose on camera.
That's it. The audience did you get the sweepstake first, didn't they?
I always liked. I know it's another one. It's not popular to say that you like it in a way because it's another one that got. I don't know if Heineken own it now or one of these big things. And that was Lagunitas. I've always liked that.
Yeah,
and they did that a bit like the Torpedo. They did one called Maximus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was great, and I still do. You don't see it very often, but when we have been around and I've seen Lagunitas, I think it's a bit. Consider it is an American one. It's almost like a traditional IPA in that it's got a very malty backbone to it. It's got that real maltiness, which is why I love black IPAs as well.
Yeah.
Got that maltiness, and I like that one. But I think sometimes once people know that someone's been taken over by one of these, like Heineken or whoever, it's almost like, oh, I don't want to like that anymore. It's not. I do sometimes think, well, if they haven't changed the beer and they haven't changed the brewer, and it's still the same beer. Well, how do I know? You know, it's like if someone hadn't told me.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
you know, if it tastes good, and then why moan? You know?
Especially the American beers
Do you
being
want
brought in. Well, I might just go to some of those straight up.
Well, we won't go down the rabbit warren of who's owning who and the pros and cons of that particular thing. I think views have changed on that. So we've got some questions we could have a look at now, Pete.
We sure do. Here's one from Belinda.
What? I've just seen a comment that you've posted.
Look at the one on your laptop.
Yeah, you
We're a bit behind
just
on there,
posted a comment saying that you've just realised that people can see your legs in the air conditioning unit above where.
Yeah.
And that was a totally necessary post.
You can actually see the audience as well. I've only just realised that.
Somebody just texted in and said they could see my belly.
Oh dear.
Don't worry about it, John. You can see mine from space.
We did point out at the start, Pete, that you could see the audience, including yourself, but you're obviously too focused on the task at hand.
There we go. Always the
So,
professional.
sorry. How does the tax for high strength beer now compare with a bottle of wine? So we are coming on shortly to talk about duty, and I'll tell you then about why they've done the duty change. But in terms of this question, I can tell you one specific thing. What they've tried to do with the alcohol review, the duty review, is to harmonise taxation across different types of alcoholic drink. So if you had, I know this isn't realistic, if you had a 7% beer and you had a 7% wine, rather than being charged at two different rates, what they've done is they've harmonised it now, and the amount of tax you pay is relative to the alcohol content, not whether it's wine, cider, beer, or spirits. So the taxation would be the same. You're going to pay more for your wine because it's stronger. That's the difference now, not because of a level of taxation. But we're going to come on to that in more boring detail later. So I don't want to do too much on that now.
What we could do is we could crack open another beer, but you've still got beer in your glass.
Well, do you want a question?
Some questions.
Yeah, another question. So last month, Pete talked about new artwork and design. Any update on that which can be shared?
We the progress has been made. The signature range of our the beers that you see more regularly in cans is almost there. We gave some hopefully final feedback through to United by Design. We've got we're almost there with the updates on our simple beers. On keg, we've got our cask branding now. Hopefully you've seen it, you like it. We're going to do something very similar with our lager, basically. Our different types of lager we make to try and make them easily recognisable from afar, but not too craft. Because I don't think your everyday lager drinker cares that it's called Golden Eagle. They just want to know that it's a Pilsner, the strength, and some of the very simple things about that beer. So these type of things are almost ready to roll out. So I'd hope within the next month you'll have an update from us. Owen, if you're watching, come on. Within the next month.
And another thing that's probably pertinent to mention right now is, if I could just tip this can back a second. So you see here how we have applied a sticker over the top of a previously printed can. So this was Nougat a Friend. The reason we did this was that the Portman Group told us that this particular 6.6% stout was marketed at children, so we weren't allowed to sell it under the current branding. Obviously, we didn't agree with that, but we have to comply. So we stickered over the top so we didn't have to recycle and waste these cans. So what we're looking to do now, to be able to accelerate our rebranding plans, is some of the surplus pre-printed cans we have our existing core range, we're going to label over the top of them like this for the special release beers. Because the sooner we can clear through those cans, the sooner we can get that new branding out there. So it'll take us a little while. There's a few to get through. But yeah, you can expect that probably from next month's box. I think one of the beers that's going to be in there will be the first that will be over-labelled in that particular way.
Yeah, it's one of those businesses like ourselves and all the other breweries out there have been under a lot of financial pressures over the last 18 months. And we sit on a lot of ingredients, so raw materials, cans, boxes, hops, malt, all the rest of it. And we're trying to find ways to reduce that volume because we need to be as efficient as possible. And we were like, well, we've got these cans that we may need for our signature range, but they're not needed anytime soon. Is there a way we can use them quicker so we don't have to buy more cans and keep this? Let's be as efficient as possible. And the campaign Lee mentioned, the Nougat a Friend, that we've overlabeled for Nougat a Recycle. It's worked really well, so we're going to use the same thing. And I'm quite excited to get through these cans and we can bring out the new brand in, and hopefully you guys will be as pleased with the drafts as we are, and you'll like the final stuff. And
we're also experimenting with printing over the top of the existing artwork. Because whether we go with the label over or we go with the print over, I'm sure you would consider it a responsible, sustainable approach. It would not be very responsible if we were to decide to destroy 50,000 cans just because we wanted to get some new artwork out there. So we feel like this is the right thing to do from an environmental perspective, but also the right thing to do from a managing your costs at a time when things are really goddamn hard perspective.
The one that's in the subscription pack this month, the 7 Cs, the 330ml can, that's got the plastic wrap on it.
That's printed.
Is that part of the new?
That's fully printed.
Can that look like it
looks,
was a?
I know exactly. It's the technology that our can producers use now for the printing. I did the same. I picked it up and I thought, oh, have we used the plastic shrink sleeve? But then I realised it's fully printed. Yeah. So when we order the even that one, that's a bad example because this is the same. It's not supposed to be, but we have our signature range beers that you see usually in the supermarket, but from our web store as well. They're fully, you peel a label off one of the Hop Sessions label off, you'll see the underprinted can. That's what a normal printed can looks like, and we have to order minimum order quantity.
At the minute, the minimum order quantity is 75,000 of any individual design, but That was through a provider called Crown, who's recently upgraded their facility, and they're shortly going to increase it to be more like 300,000 as the minimum order quantity.
Which is just
And
too many.
do you know why they have these minimum order quantities? As silly as those massive numbers, well, as big as those numbers may seem to us, to them it's an inconvenience, because that means there's a stoppage in the day
Stops them making
where
Coca-Cola
they have to change the dyes and all that to do the printing.
Right.
So they'd rather just continually print the same thing all day and get more through the machine. So they're big numbers to us, but when your main business is the likes of Coca-Cola and so forth, we are merely an inconvenience on that. We're a little fly on the windscreen.
So our can provider is a company called House, who are just up the road from us. So we've worked with them for a long time. They do a great job for us. And they've stepped in with Juice Forsyth, where Crown had let us down and they didn't print the quantities we needed in time for when we needed to. And we have commitments on this. So they've done this fully printed version on their own printer at the same price we'd normally pay for the other ones, which is a cost to our host house. So they've subsidised it for us, but they do look like they're plastic.
Yeah.
They're not. It's just a printed technology they use. Makes
And it has a gloss-like finish. And it's really clever technology. They've spent £3 million on this German digital printer that can do smaller printing runs of cans. And it can apply text to it, can apply metallics, it can do anything you can ever think of. And because it's digital, there's no cost to set up a die. And because it's digital, it means if you wanted to, can 1 could be different from can 2, could be different from can 3. We could put Pete's face on can 1, we could have Kerry on can 2.
Can you do that?
We've got some really cool ideas.
They've put our pictures on cans to sell the technology to us.
That's what you say, guys. You might want to check your screen.
Yeah.
New York, any plans for a label featuring you guys in Pete and Kerry's hot tub?
I'm a little bit worried, Ian, I've got to say, because before we started the live stream, someone said that you and Michael were going to pay for every drink at the birthday.
Next year's birthday bash for me and Kate. Yeah.
If these guys manage to get us in the hot tub. I don't know why
The
you want
night
to see us
is
in the hot
young.
tub.
My question back to you, Ian, is why do you want to see a couple of overweight Vikings in the hot tub with this lovely couple?
So without further ado,
There's a niche for everyone.
Guys, I've got one more question in the room.
Yeah?
Yeah.
No, I'm not getting in the hot tub.
Luckily, it's not to do with the hot tub. No, it's back to the X-Parrot, what we've just tried. Mentioning the types of fruits that you've had with it. Bearing in mind, I have a very base knowledge of the brewing process, so please explain like I'm 5. Is there any reason why you couldn't do a version of aged in rum barrels? Because from the fruits that you've done it with,
Sounds nice, yeah.
with in the rum barrel would be amazing, I think.
So we've been asked off camera, would we consider aging a beer like X-Parrot in a rum barrel? It sounds like a fantastic idea on the surface, and I've no doubt if we could control the bacteria involved in the barrel, that it would make for a great beer. But unfortunately, in wooden barrels, well, wood material, it's hard to clean. So there tends to be bacteria and things impregnated in the wood. And while the spirit's present, the spirit is 40 plus ABV, and that stops any bacterial growth. Once the spirit's not present, you do tend to find that there's a certain fauna, a natural amount of bacteria that becomes present in the wood. And there's a very good reason why most beers we then put in the wood are going to be 10% plus, because we've got a level of alcohol that's high enough to deter the growth of bacteria. At the level of this beer, about 6.5%, there wouldn't be enough alcohol present to prevent the bacteria from doing all the naughty stuff.
So the answer is we need to brew a triple X-Parrot, then barrel age it in rum, and then release as a special in a couple of years.
Well, I'll be waiting for it.
It does sound really interesting. I mean, maybe it's a small batch project we should do just for experiments.
What was that film? Was it Vin Diesel, Triple X? I mean, there's got to be a beer name in there somewhere.
The well-renowned fine actor.
I am Groot.
Yeah, basically, his finest work was I Am Groot. I think.
I think you're probably right.
So let's start the next beer. So you've got a beer in your hand. I'm guessing everyone's.
I'm well into
it. By now.
Me too.
So we've mentioned it a few times. It's Kirsch Russell. Kirsch Russell, give it its full name: Escape from Brew York.
which we missed off the branding first one or
time
two
round,
times round.
yeah.
didn't we?
That is
Yeah,
amazing.
unfortunately. So yeah, the name came before the beer, I think, like usual on this one. But the beer lived up to the name, in my opinion. Hopefully, you guys agree.
No, the name came after.
All right.
Now, the beer came about because there's a brewery in the US, imaginatively called the Brewery,
Oh yeah.
which is spelled Bruery. And I, courtesy of Travis, who I mentioned earlier, he brought across a cherry pie sour. And I absolutely adored it. So then I wanted to have a go at making a version of that for Brew York. So we had this cherry pie sour, and then I don't recall who came up with the name. Probably Sam. She comes up with most of them.
But yeah, it's one of the few releases that we've got now where we just get so many requests to bring it back, that we can't quite ignore them. So last year, if you remember, we did this one as well as Maple Edition.
We did it the Escape from LA
Escape
edition,
from
which,
LA.
which is the maple version.
And we decided to get back and focus on the Escaping from Brew York again, the original. It's, in my opinion, one of the best sours we do. It's, if you like, well, cinnamon, you're going to hopefully love this. If you don't like cinnamon, you might not be as keen as we are. But the whole point was to try and replicate the cherry pie, so get the different flavours of it in there. It starts off when it's, for me, I get it on the top of my jaw where it's you pull the face and you get that sour kick. Then the more you drink, the softer it gets and the more easier it becomes. But it's I find it really easy drinking after a couple of mouthfuls. Comes in at 7.5%. Sorry, 6.5%.
Yeah, I absolutely adore this beer. I think we've absolutely. I mean, this is not being modest to say this. I think we've knocked it out of the park in terms of what we were trying to do with this particular beer, and hence that's why people demand we bring it back every year.
So this one's got three quarters of a ton of concentrate. So Lee said earlier, concentrate is 4 to 1 ratio. So it's actually 3 tons, the equivalent of 3 tons of cherry in this beer. So so much sugar comes, and so much of the alcohol.
Just a few then.
Yeah, comes from the cherry. Thankfully, because we use it in concentrate form, we can pump it in through our peristaltic pump. So we get drums of it, and you can actually put the pump into it, and it pumps it into our big brewing tanks. In the past, when we were at the original brewery in Walmgate, we used to have to take little tiny boxes of fruit and in bags and pour them in.
And usually coat the whole vessel as well as
Splashed
ourselves.
everywhere.
Yeah.
When Lilith worked for us, there was that scene, and it looked like there's blood all over the floor.
Oh yeah, it looked like there'd been a proper massacre.
Yeah, it was crazy. But yeah, one of the beers that you guys thankfully like, and it's got lactose in it, like the other pastry sours we do, to give some of the residual sweetness, because obviously with cherry you expect it to taste like a cherry, and if you ferment all the sugars out, it won't really taste much like cherry anymore. And then maltodextrin as well, which is candy floss sugar. So again, another good way to get body and sweetness in the beer. So pretty. I don't know. Well, I keep saying dessert-like, but
you neglected to mention that there's a little bit of tonka in here as well.
All right.
I thought people would notice, but I noticed on draft the other day when I had a glass of it. I really noticed the tonka is quite prominent.
Yeah, I think that the reason that I've introduced tonka to this and why it works so well is it has a very almondy-like character. And if you think of like the stone in the middle of a cherry or the stone in the middle of a peach, or if you taste the flavour of those individual stones, this is the kind of character that you get. You get this almondy kind of what's the chemical that would kill you? Arsenic.
Oh,
It has an arsenic like in the small.
It's a side flavour.
In a small enough concentration, it's just like almonds. Obviously, in a high enough concentration, it's going to kill you. But yeah, that's where the almondy kind of flavour comes from. It's like there's a beer we're going to be releasing next month, an amaretto sour. An amaretto is, you think of it as an almond-based liqueur or spirit, but there's no almonds in it. It's actually made with peach or nectarine pits. So they're getting that almondy character from the peach stones or the nectarine stones.
So I guess one of our questions is, next year, do you want us to bring back Kirsch Russell as is, or we'd like to see a variant of Kirsch Russell? Maybe Kirsch and dark chocolate? Or...
Well, I think you've got 3 options. You've got the original, the LA, which was with maple, or AN other.
Can't we have all three?
The reason we ask is our favourite will always be this. And the maple version went down really well last year. And for some people it was better, but I think for most it was maybe this. And we toyed around with so many different flavours last year, deciding what to do. We did white chocolate, we did dark chocolate. I think we even tried coffee, and we tried all these different things. But what if you had control of this? What would you do? What would you add to this cherry pie to make it better?
There's a good one on the screen a second ago. It's on. It's got to go.
The hateful 8%.
Yeah.
So Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah. Well, one of the things we'll talk about actually very shortly is the changes in duty and ABVs and how that could work pretty well. Cherry and coconut is one come from Emma.
I'm not sure how that. Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Well, I think it works in a cake, so presumably it can work in a beer.
Cherry and custard. When you put your custard on your cherry pie. I don't know.
That crumble.
Yeah. Cherry crumble.
Okay. Hopefully you guys can come up with that. So we're going to take that jolly note now down into a little bit of boredom with duty changes. So right at the start, I forget who it was, someone was expressing concern that we might be changing our brewing approach in light of the recent taxation changes. So we thought it would be worthwhile us explaining these taxation changes. I know it's dry, but bear with us, to try and give you some rationale to our thinking. So to understand where we are in the UK in terms of tax, we do need to do a little bit of a history lesson. So we need to take a little bit of a step back in time. So pre-2000,
drinking strong beers.
So pre-2002, irrespective of the size of your brewery, you all paid the same amount of tax. And that basically killed competition in this country because the big guy was paying as much as the little guy. So how on earth could the little guy ever compete with the big guy? So they decided in 2002 they'd bring in something called, I'm having to look down here. Small Brewers Duty Relief. And they decided that if you were brewing less than 500,000 litres a year, or 5,000 hectolitres as we know it, that you could qualify for a 50% discount on the tax. So then you had some sort of competitive advantage over the bigger guys, and it could encourage competition in this country. And that mostly worked for the best part of the last sort of 20 odd years. But it created a bit of a false ceiling. Because what happened after you did the 500,000 litres was it climbed quite rapidly to a point where it was impossible for you to really become competitive with the big guys. So a group of breweries got together maybe 3-4 years ago, and they petitioned the government to say that this 5,000 limit where you're suddenly making it jump up is actually killing competition because people are growing to that point and then they're opting to stop. They're opting to not go over that line. So how are they truly becoming competition to the big guys? So what the government has then gone away and done is said, rather than being this kind of inverse cliff face after that level, we're going to smooth it out a little bit. So it's going to be more of a smooth trajectory up to the higher level, which you truly get to at 6 million litres. Yeah, which I know seems like a ridiculous number. But there has been a bit of a payoff for that. So unfortunately, the government has said, well, if we're going to make less money here, we need to take more money down the lower end. So the smaller guys have ended up paying a little bit more in tax to benefit the guys that are in the kind of medium range, which doesn't seem very fair. And there's been a lot of animosity towards what was called the Small Brewers Duty Reform Coalition, who have petitioned for this with the government. And most of them wouldn't even make their names publicly known. They wouldn't let you know who was part of this because, to put it in simple parlance, they basically have entered the castle and pulled up the drawbridge. Yeah. They've gone through their growth phase. They've had the benefit of this lower level of taxation. Now they're in the castle. They're pulling up the drawbridge, and they don't want anyone else to have that benefit at the same level. So we'll be honest and say we're at the level where now we would technically be in the castle. We've gone beyond that level. We're producing at that high level. And what they've done with the taxation is marginally going to bring our level of tax down. But we wouldn't have done that personally at the price of what it would do to the smaller guys. But yeah, each to their own. I guess.
Yeah, and then the other major thing that's happened recently is the government are actively trying to discourage people consuming strong alcohol. So they're trying to make a concerted effort to encourage people to drink, if they're going to drink lower strength alcohol. So there's a couple of
I've timed this really badly.
Yeah.
Sorry.
a couple of specific changes in the duty scheme that will
It's like being at the pictures, isn't it?
will help in certain ways, and then some that don't seem like they'll help. So one of the major changes is that low alcohol beer, you pay lower duty on anything that's classed as low alcohol. Low alcohol used to be anything 2.8% and below. 0.5% to 2.8%. Anything below 0.5% is alcohol free, and there's no tax on it. So 2.8% used to be the upper edge of what we call low alcohol beers, where you pay a much lower rate of tax. So we've done a couple of beers at that strength before in the past, and they've been really interesting, but not many people have bought them because 2.8%, some people tend to think, well, what's the point? 2.8% used to go all the way up to 7.5%, and that's your standard rate for beer tax or for us. And anything above 7.5% was your high strength beer, where you pay more tax. So 3 different categories. And the other thing they've changed now, the major things they've changed now is low strength beer is now 3.5% and below. High strength beer is 8.5% and above. So now you've got a range of 3.5% to 8.5%, which is standard rated beer. Anything below 3.5% is low strength. Anything above 8.5% is high strength. So that's really opened the window in good ways and bad ways. So 3.5%, we can make a very good beer for 3.5%, and you probably wouldn't be able to taste the difference between that and what we used to do as maybe 3.8%. So it's kind of created a new category because the opportunistic multinational brewers seen this spot and thought, I'm going to save millions of pounds worth of tax here. If I bring out a beer that's 3.4%, I'm going to pay hardly any tax on that 3.4% beer, and I'm still going to sell absolutely loads of it. So think of Carlsberg, for example. Carlsberg Pilsner, as they call it, used to be 3.9%, 3.8%. It's now 3.4%. So that change in ABV that they've brought out for what will probably be the same beer is going to save them about £15 million a year on tax.
Oh, no, being a burst, Steve, it's 30 million.
30 million, sorry.
30 million.
£30 million a year.
So the little guys are going to pay more, but the big guys,
the big breweries,
they estimate are going to save 30 million a year with these new taxes.
So it's good. The government are going to achieve what they want, which is a lot of people will still drink Carlsberg, and they'll be drinking lower strength Carlsberg. So people are drinking lower strength beer. Instead of having 10 pints, they might have 12 pints now, though. So they probably won't achieve the ultimate aim. But what they're going to do is
they're just going to be going to the toilet more often.
So this new
10 pints of piss instead of 12 pints.
Exactly.
I mean,
this new category is going to.
I think it just recycles around, doesn't it? Doesn't it just go from the urinal back to the pump.
So this new category is going to arise. And we've been looking into it as well. So you'll have noticed Karma Chameleon on cask and Fennec on cask, 3.4%. We're still brewing them to the well, no, we're not. We're not brewing them to 3.7% still.
Don't put that on public
because
right
it's
now.
within the 0.5% tolerance. We can pay tax at 3.4%. So the beer's still got good body, good strength. It still tastes good, but we pay less tax. So unlike Carlsberg, we're going to actually pass that saving on to the landlord, who will hopefully pass it on to the customer. And it makes a big difference because one cask of beer at the old tax rate versus the new tax rate, it's £10 per cask cheaper, which is about 12 up to 13% saving for the landlord, which means hopefully he'll pass that saving on to you guys and you'll get a cheaper pint. Whereas I don't think you'll see a saving on the pint of Carlsberg. So that's what we're going to do with that category. And then we're going to look at brewing new interesting beers. So we've got one coming out in your box next month. It's called Avoid Peer Pressure. The name is actually quite apt now, given what's happening with that category. But Avoid Peer Pressure, 3.4% beer.
Oh, on the screen for you now.
It's something we've done with the Green Dragon in Whitby, which is a bottle shop we've got a lot of love for. They've got a beer festival coming up at the end of the month. So the keg beer pours for the first time at that festival. The cans launch next week. 3.4%. The brewers have come up with a new recipe for it using Kvik Foss yeast.
Kvik Foss
Right.
yeast, yes.
So if you drink that beer, I guess you probably wouldn't be able to tell it's ABV unless we'd already told you. You probably think it's closer to 4%. The beer's got really good body, really good hop aroma. But that's what we're trying to do with this category. We're trying to make sure that when you drink it, you wouldn't know any different. You'd think you were still drinking your normal sessionable beer. And the big point here is the price of that beer is going to be about, is it £1 a can cheaper, Pete? I can't remember what the numbers were. I posted it in our chat earlier, but the price saving per can from doing this change in duty is really good for the end consumer, for you guys, and it means that we pay the government less tax. So bonus.
Yeah, I think a key takeaway from what Wayne has said there is that we're doing this to make certain things more affordable to you. We're not doing it to maximise our profits in the way that the macros do.
It's too good.
Wow.
Yeah.
So somebody likes Kirsch Russell.
Well, we do have a bit more to go through before you get another beer, I'm sorry.
On the dry topic, so.
You should have learned from Liam Wayne and got a
Yeah.
side pint.
Yeah, I had a side pint. I drank that
So you
too.
drank that as well?
Look
Okay.
what I've got here.
So, did you manage to get any graphics on, Pete, about the other ones, the Nightmare of Brew York?
Sure did.
Good example. So show us a graphic and I'll talk you through it.
Which one do you want?
Let's go to the far extreme then. Let's go to was it
Cherry?
Wolf of Cherry? So 12% beer we brought out recently. Oh, sorry, have we got any other notes on the monetary bit? Or is it just the actual beer?
Oh, if you ask me.
I'll get the phone out. Let you talk about Give the Wolf of Cherry a little bit.
Right, so it's a 12% beer that we produced with Lerbig for our birthday with Tonka and cherries, because we never work with cherries and we never work with Tonka. And I think what Wayne's about to demonstrate to you here is the price it would have been pre the duty change on the 1st of August, and then the price it would now be as a result of the increased taxation. And as a reminder, anything above 8.5%, irrespective of the size of your brewery, no longer qualifies for any discount. They simply are trying to get us to not drink the strong stuff anymore, which, as we know, is not going to work because we're British.
So exactly that.
I mean, moving on to what you were saying earlier about comparing the price that you can give it to the landlord and hopefully he'll pass that on. I couldn't help but notice, but I don't see you making any saving when you're buying a pint of Carlsberg. I think I can safely say no one that's tuning into this is ordering a pint of Carlsberg. I get it for illustration,
exactly.
but every time you say that word, I shudder slightly.
I hope you're right, Pete, but every now and again we find ourselves in situations like at gigs or sports events and things like that.
When Guinness isn't available, so you've got to go for something else.
Unfortunately, we have to drink whatever's in front of us. Because we're not having the water, are we?
So Give the Wolf the Cherry. So
That's where the gin comes in.
Well, I tend to go Guinness over wine.
So back in July, when we were selling this beer, it was £9 a can based on the taxation, ingredients, and everything else we sell. 12% beer, £9 a can. It's an expensive beer. That same beer on the 1st of August, if hadn't have paid for all our tax in advance, would have gone up to £10.95 a can. So an extra £2 a can. So 22% increase because we haven't paid more tax on it. So what we did is all breweries were offered this option. We every stock we had that's over 8.5%, every beer we had that was over 8.5%, we paid the tax on in advance to HMRC, so that we can carry on selling it at the same price. Now we've got to consider every new beer we bring out. What do we want to do with it? If we go above 8.5%, we have to pass that price on. Unfortunately, from this point onwards, so 22% extra for the same beer, which is just crazy.
So before we go on, can we just pick up on Tom Foss' comment where he said, "Are people bothered about a couple of pound when buying 10% beers? Anything between 10 and 15%, that's £15 rather, is much the same if it's great." So yeah, Tom, I am very like you, but we are not everyone. So I think we need to kind of resize the market, I guess. We need to see what people are willing to pay now. So we are not saying that we are not going to do a big, strong beer. What we're saying at this point in time is we're going to be a little bit tentative about it for a little while we work out where the
Especially
market's
when
at.
you guys are collating what you're going to put into the subscription box. That's going to make it prohibitive on price because you've already agreed with people.
Yeah.
You don't want to pass that on to
It's
us.
a real challenge, yes, with the subscription box.
So with a subscription box, if you want to make a beer that you're really proud of, but then you're kind of thinking, I can't really add it to that box now because the tax is going to actually mean we're going to lose money putting it in that box.
Well, the big saver here is what the government have done by extending the standard strength beer up to 8.5%. We feel pretty confident. Well, I don't feel confident. In my opinion, Imperial Tom Cocoa is probably the best version of Tom Cocoa we do, and it was 7.5%. So I know we do Empress, which is 10.8. It's amazing, but you don't drink much of it because it's so strong. Just imagine an 8.5% version of Tom Cocoa, where you're boosting the alcohol, you're boosting the flavour, not quite going too strong, but how much we could do with that. So the new ABV change means that now we can go up to 8.5% without paying ridiculous tax. So Nightmare of Brew York, for example, this year we're going to bring it down to 8.5%. So it's 9.6 at the moment. So bring it down a little bit. But if we brought Nightmare of Brew York out right now, and the current duty scheme, that would be £11.90 a can at 8.5%, which is very expensive. The new duty scheme means that same beer at 8.5% is £8.40 a can. So it's a huge saving by what they've done with the scheme. So the downside is if we went to 8.51%, so we took it to the new higher rate, that beer instead of £8.40 a can would be £13.60 a can.
Oh.
So that's how crazy this strong ABV is going to become. So the new ABVs just become so prohibitive. We've got to be really careful about that when we take it above 8.5%. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing we can do. We've got loads of beer aging in barrels that is above 8.5%. So we will bring them out still. They're just going to be not as popular, unfortunately, because I don't think everyone's willing to pay the extra tax we're going to have to pay on that beer.
So I think the silver lining, the way to view this is
we'll get creative. We'll make sure we get it.
The rarer something is, the more special something is. So we're not saying we're not going to do it. We are going to do it, but it's not going to be every month. We're not going to be stepping over the 8.5 every month because we don't think people should have to pay that. We don't think people want to pay that.
No.
And we need to consider the average viewpoint rather than the outliers that may want to pump in that extra couple of quid or whatever.
And we do appreciate it. We really love the support, and we love the fact that you guys love our strong beer, and we want to keep doing it. And don't get us wrong, we aren't. This isn't us saying we're going to stop making strong beer. We're just going to be so much more selective about when we go above the 8.5%. It's got to be a beer that you're all really excited about. So Empress Tom Cocoa is still coming out in January. It's still going to be 10.6%, but that's going to be something that hopefully you're willing to save up and pay for because it's a treat.
So
the barrel aged Empress, is that the one, or was it that? Which was the one that you did it and it gained in strength from being in the barrel and then you had to.
all of them.
So then you have to brew a fresh. So some of those other ones that you've got in stock that are in those barrels, is that an option to then blend it with a fresh beer to bring it down, but you're not going to lose that barrel aged flavour. You're still
If we
going
were
to.
talking about something that wasn't too strong, so not massively over 8.5%, we could dilute it and bring it down. But you only want to do maybe 5 to 10% dilution because we didn't put the beer in the barrel for 12 months to then destroy it by dilution. But anything that's well beyond 10%, you'd have to dilute it so far you'd totally destroy it.
You're going to lose that barrel aged flavour, which was the whole point in the.
You lose the flavour, but also a big part of drinking big stouts is the viscosity. It's the like syrupy treacleness of the beer. If we put too much water in there, you've completely lost that.
So one of our plans with going back to barrel aged Nightmare this year, we're going to brew a big, thick, full-bodied stout and blend barrel aged back with that fresh beer. So it's still got the body, but we're going to get it to the £3 or £4 a can saving points that you guys don't have to pay as much. So we wouldn't barrel age an 8.5% beer because it probably wouldn't hold up in barrel for a year. But but we barrel age 9 and a bit % beer, and then blend it back with a fresh beer to try and get it to the level where the tax won't be too strong, too much.
So there is one final thing we needed to do on the tax bit, which is to point out what a idiot Rishi Sunak and our government is. When they decided to come to GBBF, they saw it as a good, positive story that they'll go to the biggest UK cask beer event because they've recently brought tax down on beer. Well, no, they hadn't. Because what they did was for beer that's dispensed in a pub, they give it a small discount to try and make that beer more competitive with beer purchased in the supermarkets, because now the supermarkets lead the way. As of about 3-4 years ago, more beer is purchased through supermarkets as in pubs, and that's been a long-standing trajectory. So they introduced this draft relief where they give, is it 11, 10%?
No, but it's about 10-ish %.
10% discount on any vessel over 20 litres in size served through a pub. And that saves you about 4p a pint. But then they increased duty in line with RPI, the retail price index, which increased it by 4p a pint. So the taxation stayed exactly the same, yet the government decided to rock up at GBBF and peddle the message that they've just saved you money on your pint. Absolute BS. They absolutely have not. Total tripe. But what else
have
would we expect from
have
them?
they achieved that tax parity that Tim, what's his name, who owns Wetherspoon, he's been going on about, to try and get it so that it's the same tax in the pub that it is in the supermarket? Have they done that?
This was a step in that direction, but no.
But
it's not
still no.
Yeah.
So we're still stiffed then.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Given it's Lee's beer next, it's probably my turn to go to the toilet again. I'm first to go twice tonight.
Right, well, I best get these passed along then.
Thank you very much.
Right, so
Thank
now we are on to, and I've not finished my beer, so I can't pour that yet. I'll pop that there for
If you
when.
need any help with that, you know.
I'd never see the thing again if we go in your last week. So now we're on to Divine Coffee. Easy for me to say. Divine Coffee Inspiration.
Intervention.
Intervention. Yeah.
That's what I called it earlier when I
It's
looked
because
at
I've
it.
written on the script inspiration. It's
Yeah.
intervention.
It's intervention.
Because it's
You're
divine intervention with
Yeah.
the word coffee. I've totally written the script
Inspiration.
wrong.
Yeah.
So Divine Coffee Intervention. So it's 7.5%. It's the latest in our mini series, our cocktail inspired mini series. It's been brewed with a coffee roasting house in York called Divine Coffee.
Oh, that's
If you were at our 7th birthday party, which of course you guys were,
yes.
it's the coffee guys that were at the back of
Oh,
Unit 1.
Yes, yeah.
So those guys said shortly after the event they'd be very keen to work with us. We had the view of doing this cocktail series.
Are they the same guys? I don't know if you still do, but you used to have coffee beans
Yeah,
on.
with the tongue.
Is that the same
people that
same
make it.
roasters that do that? Yeah, lovely.
What's it called? I couldn't quite get that from the toilet.
Let's see if I get it right third time. It's called Divine Coffee Intervention, not Divine Coffee Inspiration. So I haven't done that.
So we wanted to call it Divine Intervention, but a few breweries had already done that. So.
No, but I wanted to call it Divine Comedy.
Oh, right.
That would be good, yeah.
But apparently the band has trademarked that. But the Divine Comedy is a 13th century Italian play. So I don't see how they could have copyrighted that. But anyway, we decided we couldn't go with Divine Comedy, which for me was the natural fit. And we then went with Divine Intervention, not Inspiration. So Divine Coffee Intervention. So in the first of this series, we did Decks on the Beach, which was a Sex on the Beach inspired pale. And what we're trying to do with this series is to not only wander around the different cocktail styles, but also wander around the different beer styles. So the first one was a pale ale infused with fruit. So this one is a stout designed to be like a cocktail. And then the next one is going to be an amaretto sour, so sour designed to be like a cocktail. And this is based on my wife's favorite cocktail, the espresso martini. But Brew York being Brew York, we can't just stop there. We have to go one step further. And we're known for our use of coconut. So we decided to do a coconut espresso martini. So into this, we have coconut, We've got coffee, we've got a little hint of nutmeg, and a little bit of vanilla just to soften it on the back end. And there's also 7 different types of malt in here. And a little trick we learned from Simon that they have in their Broken Dream. What was the award they won? Best beer in Britain? They don't call it.
The champion beer of Britain.
Champion beer of Britain. Yeah, so Broken Dream, their stout, won champion beer of Britain.
Oh, congratulations to Ellen Porter.
I think it was 2018, I have to say, that they won that. And they put a little bit of smoke malt in there. Not so you would necessarily notice it, but in the overall kind of complexity, it kind of rounds it out a little bit. So we've got a little bit of smoke malt in here as well.
I'm going to preempt your next point, but I am absolutely loving the aftertaste bitterness, like when you have a coffee.
Yeah, yeah.
So we always do this, but this beer hasn't been released yet. So we were perusing the feedback on
Perusing.
because at this stage it's only our subscribers who've had it. So usually you guys are pretty honest in your feedback, and there was a fair few very low scores saying really bitter, don't like it. I actually really like the bitterness for what we're trying to create here.
Coffee is bitter.
Yeah.
It's what we went for. I mean, obviously we're known for putting a lot of lactose in a lot of things,
So this
but that wouldn't have fit with this stout.
No.
You wouldn't put cream in an espresso martini.
No.
So we wanted it to have that intentional bitter punch.
Have you ever come back from the pub and thought, here's a good idea, let's have about 4 espresso martinis, and then 5 a.m.
I didn't feel like sleeping.
We've done that. We've done that.
It's the people our age's version of drinking a vodka Red Bull. And then
Yes.
I remember when vodka Red Bull
Yes,
became a thing,
Yeah.
and at the time Liam was quite young, so we weren't going out because we were just parents and staying at home. And all my mates at work who were younger than me that were going, oh yeah, we all go out, vodka Red Bull. So we went to Asda's and we bought their version of Red Bull. I can't remember what it's called.
And the white label vodka to go with it.
And then we weren't really feeling it. We thought, oh, this is all right. I think it was about 4 a.m. Me and Em were just like, should we just get up? Because we're obviously not sleeping tonight.
That reminds me, I did a work placement when I was at university down in Portsmouth at IBM. And we used to say IBM stuff, I'm bloody mashed, because we used to all just go and drink that, the white labelled vodka and the crazy Taurus Red Bull, and then we'd drink that at home, and then we'd all go out normally drinking, which meant spending money on 1 pint.
Yeah, because that's all you needed.
Preloading.
Yeah.
Anyway, Sal, if you're watching, I never did that.
Oh, dear. And earlier this year, last year, you actually made.
Actually, I'm not going to issue a cease and desist, but I've already invented this.
Yeah.
Drunkenly, came home, decided to make espresso martinis. We had some toncoco in the fridge, and I made
Coffee
espresso
toncoco.
tonkini.
Yes. In fact, we even put the video up on Instagram, so you will.
Unfortunately,
I'm not loving the name. I'm getting.
Yeah, but it's a bit mankini.
Yeah, I'm getting kind of Boris.
Yeah,
Borat.
Yeah, Borat.
Oh my god, that's like a hybrid of Boris and Borat.
Borat.
Boris and
Oh, now I've got an image.
See if you can get that image up too.
So we've done it a few times in the tap room. We've made Viking DNA espresso martinis. So drop the coffee, use Viking DNA. Hopefully most people have tried that, but at some point it's our smoke porter, the first ever beer we brewed. But I think this would be better. So
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yes.
All I remember is because obviously it was a beer going into the cocktail shaker, and then it was very messy.
To be fair,
It tasted great, and then we tried to work out how had made it. But Kerry had done this thing where she videoed it, and then when you post it, it's all in like really fast forward. And then we were trying to slow that down because I I was drunk.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember how and what portions of.
So basically,
you have to try and remake it really
fast. Try to remake it.
Going forward, you know the long handled spoons that cocktail makers have?
yes, yeah.
And if you were making like a shandy or that kind of thing, the thing with the gas in, you take that and you beat the gas out of it before you combine it with the other ingredients.
That would have been a very
That would
good
have been,
advice
yeah.
to drunken me back then.
But you still wouldn't listen.
But drunken me wouldn't have listened to you anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we've got a couple of notes on here. One is the artwork.
Which, Pete, correct me if I'm wrong. I've written on here that this is based on their actual cafe. Is that correct?
That is true.
Right, okay. I was not lying. It is based on their cafe.
And then we want to know what you guys. We did this last time. What cocktails we want to do next? So we've done the cocktail with our mates on Bard.
Jordan and the team, yeah.
So that's the Amaretto Sour, which is the next in this series. So what are we going to do for the last of the series? Who we brewing it
Strawberry
with?
daiquiri.
Oh,
I was in there like
Well,
Well, no, there might be another one or two in the series. There's one where I think we're going to come up with a concept, and then there's a brewery based out of Sheffield called Heist, and they're having to think about a cocktail beer that they want to do with us. So I have no idea what they're going to come up with. But
I'm not suggesting this as one you should do, but we currently have the ingredients to make a woo-woo.
What is a woo-woo?
I think it's Lee's favourite cocktail.
I'm definitely not a woo-woo kind of person.
What is in the woo-woo?
It's peach schnapps, cranberry, and other things.
Alright.
Well, Screwdriver's an easy one, isn't it?
Is that
I can
vodka?
imagine.
Well, vodka and orange, isn't it?
Yeah.
This time last month when the live stream was on, I was down in Newquay, and Lee mentioned about he knows he's on holiday when he has a pina colada. So
Yes.
I went down the beach the next day and I got a pina colada. It was so good. It wasn't frozen. It was just like I don't know. It was rubbish. It has to be a frozen pina colada.
Yeah.
It's mine and Polly's tradition. Whenever we go anywhere on holiday, UK, abroad, wherever, whatever time of day, second we get there, pina colada, because then you're on holiday.
Yeah. Let's try that.
What we should do is a
I like
Long
them.
Island iced tea, which is
We-
the most alcoholic
Oh,
cocktail I
it's
think
just
you can get.
pure, yeah. That
Just
and
everything,
zombie.
yeah.
I think
Yeah.
zombie as well, aren't they meant to be
Yeah.
stupid strong?
Just got that.
Oh, someone else has just said Long Island iced tea. So, tell me about a Long
awesome.
Island iced tea. What's in there?
Everything. I
Tequila, Coca-Cola, vodka, yeah.
lemon juice,
It's-
sugar syrup.
Yeah, it just tastes
So,
so.
based on tequila, lemon juice, coca. That could be a hard thing to do as a beer.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
a
I
big
feel about
plate,
that.
isn't it? Yeah,
Sounds like chance to me.
Yeah.
yeah.
Might be a step too far.
yeah. Leave that stuff to
So,
Northern
strawberry
Monk.
daiquiri then.
You know.
Strawberry's a hard flavour to work with
Yeah.
in beer, but I mean, never
We'll probably
seen
have to
that.
use something a bit artificial to get the strawberry because strawberry is the fruit that completely ferments. All the sugar, as soon as it starts fermenting, you can't really taste
And then,
strawberry
then you
anymore.
can't taste. Yeah.
But Vault City have done a great job of strawberry beers, so we'll have to hit
Reach
them up
out.
to see
That
what
sounds
they
like a
do.
collab.
And
in the
we
making.
did a.
Yeah.
What was the strawberry and lime one we did? No, we did just strawberry tea one, but then we did one where we used strawberry amaretto purees. What was that one called?
Is this a dream? I don't
No.
know. I genuinely don't know.
We bought loads of the litre bottles of the strawberry syrup. It was one of those Brewer's Kiss of Death ones. You know when we said
Oh,
it's,
we said,
it's amazing, we love it, it's going to sell really well.
And then it just-
And then it didn't.
yeah, we have this thing where when the production team come into
Can
our
we-
meeting and
Can we
tell
put
us
Melissa's comment up?
we've got this amazing beer, we're loving it, and then as soon as they say that, it's like, oh god, it goes to the public, people aren't going to like it because we just have weird taste, unfortunately. We our tastes, and it's not really weird. We just kind of have been there and done it, so we're like a
It's
couple of weeks or a
progressed,
couple of
eh?
months
Yeah,
ahead of
that's
guessing
what it is,
what-
yeah,
or
yeah.
sometimes years ahead of
Yeah.
what everyone else is drinking. But me and Lee are just stuck in our ways. Old school trad.
There's that whole thing though
Love
with you.
that.
There's beers that you can have, and we're a bit like Lee's story from earlier that your Texan mate brought some fantastic beers that you would have loved, but you can't remember half of them. We've done
took
that.
photos.
Yeah, and we've done that. We've had
That's
beers that
right.
we've gone, I'm saving that because I'm going to love it. And then you get drunk and you drink them anyway. And then about a week later, I'm thinking, I'm going to have that
Yeah, I'm
beer.
gonna have that
And I
beer.
realise it's
Yeah,
already
it's already
gone.
gone.
And I don't even remember it.
You don't
Totally
remember how
gutted.
it
The other
Yeah.
thing
Oh, no.
is sometimes there's beers I've had that I've absolutely hated purely based on the beer I've had before it.
And then have it next time, and it's
Yeah,
And then another time,
Yeah.
we've gone and we've seen it, and it's maybe like it's on a really good offer or something. I'm like, oh, go on then, we'll buy it. Tried it. I'm like, why didn't I like this beer before? And it is
the
it's
worst one
very
for me
much.
that relates to what you're saying there is that you've had a special beer, you've waited a while to drink it.
Yeah, someone's got it.
Red light, green light. Thank you, Dan. And you're getting drunk, and you decide this is the occasion. You open it, you have about 2 sips, and you fall asleep.
Yeah.
And then the beer's ruined.
Yeah.
Oh, why did I do that?
So one of the reasons why if we do a sour, Kirsch isn't quite that type of sour, but where we sometimes drop a sour in the middle of the tasting is to cleanse the palate so you're ready for the next beer. It really makes a difference because, like you said, sometimes if you've had like a really high bitterness beer and then you move on to something that's not quite as high bitterness, you really won't appreciate the flavour in that beer. So you need to cleanse the palate. Eat crackers, but you don't want to eat crackers. Drink a beer, sour beer, cleanse the palate. Find ways to get ready. For
Yeah, I mean, definitely the way you guys do your monthly, there is often you start off on a relatively safe ABV. You ramp it up a bit with maybe something that's quite, and then you do a sour, and that cleanses your palate.
Ready for that last.
And then
big
we
hit.
end on an
The whole
insane.
structure's about what can the palate tolerate.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
Oh, we learned that years ago. Going back to the whole beer journey things, we've done, and you go somewhere and you don't know what you're trying because you've never had them before. You have something super hoppy, and it absolutely kills your palate. And then you get something else afterwards, which is it just tastes of nothing.
Well,
and it doesn't taste of nothing. It's just you did it in the wrong order.
It'll be hard for me to not mention the brewery and describe what I'm about to describe, but I'm not going to mention the brewery. There are certain events where they might be based around hoppy beers or they might be based around stouts, where I love those beers. But to do one after another with the hoppy beers, by the time I'm 4 or 5 beers in, I'm like, they're all the same.
Yeah.
I can't tell these apart anymore. What's the point? And with the dark beers, they're so intense on the palate that, I mean, I'm going to have to admit here that Northern Monk did get wise to that, and then they made it dark and wild. Because now you can have a few darks, it kills the palate, you go off, you have a sour, refreshes, reawakens the palate, and then you can go and have a few more. Because if you're just doing stout after stout after stout, as I did on that night with Travis, as good as those beers are, you're not recognising one from another after a certain point in time.
Yeah, and you've kind of missed some really great beers that if they'd been your first beer, they'd have been like, wow, what a great beer. And if anything, you've just necked them because, by that
it's
point,
in front of you. Basically.
Anyway, so can we flash up Melissa's comment one more time? Because I did want to go on to that. So Melissa, a good friend of Brew York, who does not like coconut, hence is not a huge fan of Tom Coco, but is really enjoying this beer because thankfully the coconut is not all that present. But is really getting the coffee and therefore really enjoying it and its bitterness.
So I think the coconut is very present, but I think the coffee bitterness still comes through. So
the coffee's definitely leading out, though, isn't it?
Yeah, whereas Tom Coco is all about the coconut. So.
The coconut's more on the nose as you put your.
So hello, Melissa, and Alan, who I assume is with you.
Hold your nose,
Let's try that.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
Here we all just look like idiots on there.
You didn't get a screenshot of that.
Yeah, no, you do though. Yeah,
oh, there we go.
By the way, we aren't just pointing at the wall. We're just there is a TV over there that we can see our replay on. So, should we talk about what's coming up?
Yeah. Seamless.
I've always got cramp in my foot, which is why I stopped. So next YouTube, we've got the beer we mentioned earlier, Avoid Peer Pressure. So 3.4% session pale. Honestly, I'm so pleased with what the guys have done with this. When they told me how excited they were, they didn't put the brewer's curse on it. I went and tasted it in tank, and I agree with them. This is a beer to be excited about. Some people are going to really question this 3.4% fad that's coming up. But it's not going to be a fad because of the tax. It's going to be a permanent thing. You're going to see 3.5%, 3.4%, 3.5% beers more and more often. And it's up to us to convince you guys that this is the beer to drink because the price point will be so much better. But we still want to pack it full of flavour. So this is the beer for me that we've done so far that proves that. Anyone in this room has had a sneak preview of the next beer, which is When Lemons Give You Life, which was canned today. So that's going to be in your next box. It launched in a couple of weeks. It's it's a release of a beer we did last year or the year before.
Oh, yeah, another one that's had a couple of year hiatus. So yeah, 2 and a bit years ago.
So
Yeah,
stop blocking me, Pete.
and that totally wasn't in focus.
No, it was a bit blurry.
But you can see for yourself up there.
It was a
now.
bit blurry.
Yeah.
So then we've got the Way to Amaretto, which is our collab with Lombard, a 6% Amaretto sour. And then this is a pretty interesting one. So we've got something coming back, which you might not have been expecting, which is the Ghost Dimension. So if you remember, for our birthday a few years back, we brewed a collab with our friends Fierce. So our importer in Sweden tried this beer, absolutely loved it, and ordered quite a substantial volume of it. So we put it back into schedule. It's a 12% beer. So we are bringing back high strength beers. But we have
despite all that conversation earlier,
But only if you live in
1
Sweden.
month on, you're getting a 12% stout.
Yeah.
So it's a good shout that though, because this beer probably isn't going to go on sale in the UK. You guys who are subscribers will get it, but we're not going to put it on general sale because we don't think people.
Well, don't make those guarantees. We don't know how the packaging.
Probably not going to put it on sale in the UK. So that's coming back. We've got a couple of other beers going to be in the box. We've got Hop Sessions 003, and someone mentioned it earlier. It was the Sherlock's Pilsner. So Sherlock's Pilsner is going to be in.
Was that it? Oh.
Yeah, I can't remember what the other one. The Moxie beer. So there's a few different beers going to be in. And then we've got loads of events coming up, starting with this weekend.
I'll reel those off. So this Friday, you will find myself and Wayne down at London Craft Beer Festival. But we, as a team, have a presence there. Friday, Saturday, is it? Or is it?
Yeah, just 2 days.
Just Friday, Saturday. Week after, again, myself and Wayne will be at Peakender. So Thornbridge have a camping festival held at the Showground in Bakewell. We're going to be there on the I'm going to be there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I think.
I think on Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
And Pete's going to be there from behind the camera. Our market manager Rachel, I believe, is going down. Are Joe and Michael going? Have I got that right?
Don't think they are.
Are they not going?
No.
I'm just used to seeing them at every
They should be
event.
watching us from America right now. Hi guys.
Well, would it not be bedtime over there now? Or early hours of the morning?
No,
Afternoon,
it'll be the
afternoon.
afternoon.
Oh, well, in that case, hello, Joanna and Michael, if you are indeed watching. Anyway, Peakender's great because it's one where they take some beer off us, they pour it, and everybody in the brewing industry just turns up for a bit of a social.
Yeah.
So we'll meet various other
saw you
brewery
guys there
owners,
last
brewery.
We saw you guys there last year.
Are you going this year?
We're not.
no,
actually,
Right.
I
believe
no,
last
we're
time-
not.
I won't say
We're
anything
just saying
negative.
we're not. And that's
Yeah,
it.
we're not.
All right, we will continue that conversation.
Yes.
The beer was great.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I will pick up later on that one. And then between the 24th and the 28th, there's Whitby Beer and Spirits Con,
Which is the official keg pour launch of Avoid Peer Pressure.
which is hosted by Green Dragon.
And Escavolts, their sister
That's
venue.
right, yeah. 26th to the 27th of August, you'll find us in Nottingham at the Nottingham Arboretum. 7th to the 10th of September, you will find us at Leeds International Beer Festival. Myself and Wayne will be
Where are
there
they?
at Kirkstall Abbey on the Thursday, which is the 7th. And then
Probably
finally,
more than
we
just
will
the
be up in is it Edinburgh?
Yeah, I'm off at Edinburgh with Watters on the 29th and 30th of September for Gravity Beer Festival. That's going to be pretty cool. Watters will do all the work and I'll do all the drinking. I hope he's watching. He's
Okay.
not watching.
So I think we've got time for a last couple of
Well,
questions.
let's roll VT about the last one. We didn't roll the VT.
Oh, about Divine Coffee.
Let's do that at the end.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll do that at the end. Let's do some questions. We'll do a closeout, and then you can roll your VT at the end.
Sounds good. Here's one related to events.
Oh, good one. Oktoberfest. Oh, sorry, Oktoberfest.
Your
Freudian slip.
Oktoberfest.
So a couple of things we've got here. So we've had a positive meeting with the guys who run the Oktoberfest, which is in October, which is a 6 or 7. What's it, 7?
Nice. So it's Friday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday 1 week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday the next week, and it might be a Thursday of the first week.
So these we're providing all the beers. So we're doing 2 different lagers, a fest beer, a hef, and a pale ale. So doing all the beers. Go down there. They've got proper fancy dress steins. Get into the spirit. It's a lot of fun. We went last year.
Entertainment, drag acts.
So I want them to get Lee to get up and drag and sing and
Oh,
dance.
yes.
And then
I'd pay to see that.
and that was and that's in October. We're going to do our own mini Oktoberfest in the beer hall back into September to kind of align it with what they do in Munich. So that'll be a sneak preview of some of these beers down in our beer hall. So pretty excited about that. The fest beer in particular, we're going to bring back Unbelievable Hef, but with a different name, so we don't get sued.
But the fest beer is the one that we produce with Simon from Real Ale Craft Beer. So it's brewed to the style of a Marzen. So Marzen means March. It was typically the month that you would have brewed it. And in Germany, they would have brewed it traditionally in March because it was one of the colder months of the year. And they had to lager at the colder conditions. These days, obviously, we have cooling, so you're not restricted as to when you produce it. But, excuse me, the only time in the year that these beers turn up is specifically for this festival.
ABV.
So it's the first time ever that we've made a Oktoberfest beer, a beer that is specifically for this festival.
Why is
5.8%.
Oktoberfest usually in September?
It's funny, isn't it?
I've never worked out
I
that.
I thought. Okay.
Will it be in the sub box?
Oh yeah,
It will end up in the
exactly. The ABV of the Marzen.
It's 5.8. That's
That's the
a
lowest
weak
then.
Marzen. Marzens can be up to 7.5%.
So we've got to go for a balance of brewing something traditionally and as accurate as possible to what's going to actually commercially sell. And for that very, very small window, there might be Oktoberfest going on for our country, but we can't reach them all and convince them all to buy our beer. So we've got to just go for what we can. And we felt 5.8 is accessible enough beer for people who are going to an Oktoberfest to think, yeah, I'll go for that. It's a little bit strong. I'll give that a try. And they're probably getting the Stein as well. But if we went too strong, I think it would be prohibitive.
Yeah.
Really excited about that one. It's going to be pretty cool. And like with Unbelievable Hef, these are styles that we really wanted to brew. We've always been scared that they won't sell, so we've been reluctant to brew them. You guys bought so much of Unbelievable Hef. It sold out within a month, which is one of the fastest selling styles for us. So yeah, we're going to keep doing it. We're going to keep doing these interesting styles. So again, let us know which styles you want us to brew.
Well, in a because I always say more than I should. Let's go there. So, Unbelievable Hef was inspired by Chris Kamara of Sky Sports fame.
Well, football fame before that.
Football fame, admittedly, before that. So we've recently been in talks with Chris and his foundation about doing another beer, specifically with the aim of generating some money for charitable causes of his choice. So it's very early days, but we hope to be doing another beer with Chris soon.
Well done.
Officially,
an official one. Where I was almost going to name the charity there, but the charity's not confirmed. So I don't want to mislead anyone.
Yeah.
So we'll leave that for down the line.
So hopefully to get that out in time for Christmas. Fingers crossed. It was crazy when we knew obviously all the cop talks that were going on. So myself and Lee joined a video call on a Tuesday morning, and we're like, "Oh shit!" Yeah.
No,
that's Chris. we weren't expecting him on the call.
We were expecting to talk to his team.
Yeah,
and then hello.
That was. And then we were like, "Oh, but we can't see you." And this is about 30 minutes in. We're like, "Oh shit!" So both we were on separate. We're not in our own offices, so we're on separate feeds. So something had gone wrong with the feed, and we just assumed everyone could see what we could, which wasn't the case.
It turns out.
So we were like just black screens. And
we looked like dirty voyeurs. We could see them, that we weren't letting them see us.
We were quite excited about this, and we didn't go about it the right way first time around, but they loved the name, they loved the imagery, so we're going to hopefully come up with something really cool. We can't use that same name again, but hopefully we can do something. And if you guys got any ideas, let us know.
Emma Thomas, my boss, had the Hef. He loved it. after so many months of me advocating Brew York. Excellent.
Well done, Emma.
So we're not far off done now. Before we go, there is one thing we need to do, a bit of a call to action. So we have done this now on a Wednesday, a Thursday, and then back on a Wednesday. The reason we were trialing this was the viewership figures had fallen off on a Friday, and our theory was you had the option of going to the pubs again. So we thought that was perhaps why we weren't seeing so many people tuning in. So we thought we'd try some weekday dates. And we've done that for 3 months now. And now we need to come to a decision about what the default day is going to be for this going forward. So is it going to be a Wednesday? Is it going to be a Thursday? Is it going to be a Friday? I don't think we have long enough now to kind of conclude that. But if you could get back to us by posting comments below this video, perhaps once it's concluded, or if you would like to email info@brewyork.co.uk, that would be really helpful, because in the next week or two, we need to work out the date for the next one of these and everyone thereafter. So, yeah, we're really constructive if you could let us know your thoughts. Thank you.
Can I just give our thoughts? Originally, we was like, Friday is the day. It's the, we were Monday to Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. Friday was the best day. And we was like, when you was on about a different day, we was like, we can't drink. But to be fair, we've tried it the Wednesday and the Thursday, and we've enjoyed it.
You just created an extra weekend.
Basically.
Yeah. So
drinking enough water after it finishes to be good.
I mean,
are we not part of the problem?
normally on the Friday we would probably carry on. Well, we would carry on drinking afterwards. But when you've done these days,
we just do the four.
Yeah,
if it's a
we just do the
weeknight,
four
we just do
days
the four
and that's
tasting
it.
beers, and that's it.
Yeah.
Game over.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's a Friday,
but we still thoroughly enjoy
we carry
it.
on and get.
But then it
shit-faced.
gets to Friday, and it's like, wait, it's Friday again. So yeah, I mean, to be fair, I was.
Yeah.
Because obviously,
Yeah,
as soon as
it's
that camera's going off, we're stopping, aren't we?
Yes.
You might be.
Pete's had a coffee since he's been here, bless him. Pete behind the camera. No, just a coffee.
So yeah, interested to hear your thoughts, but we need to hear those thoughts from a broader audience. So if you can get your thoughts in either below the video or into the email, once again, info@brewyork.co.uk. We need to make that decision fairly promptly. So if you can get back to us in the next week, max 2. I can see a few comments going in there. Melissa's saying that she likes the Wednesday. Adam has said he's up for the Friday. Dave has said he likes the Friday. But yeah, sample of 3. Let's see what you all think, and then we'll come to a decision soon.
So only thing left to do is a huge thank you to our host this evening. Can we? I think it's to bring my Don Coco. It's not Don Coco, sorry. I made some cakes tonight, some muffins.
Liam, there's some cakes in the outside fridge if you want to bring them in.
So
they're in a tin.
This is a hint about what beer's coming as well, which is the artist formerly known as
Big
Toucan. We think we're going to rename this beer because we want to do a lot of it. We want to bring Big Toucan back, our Nitro Stout. We want it to become.
Big Toucan's a bit too of an obvious shot across the bows of Guinness. So we're thinking with our York heritage, and that Dick Turpin came from York, and his horse was called Black Bess.
Yeah, that's a good beer name.
Black Bess is the name of it.
Yeah.
So we're not totally sold on that, but I mean, that's a good reception to it.
Yeah,
we had a good reception in house. So
We just
we're thinking
It has
maybe
a
that's
good
the way.
meaning.
Yeah.
So that's
So
fine.
complete tangent, but you just reminded me. You ever made Black Velvet?
With
Guinness and
No,
things.
literally,
Right.
me and Polly went away to Northumberland, and Polly was really excited to try Black Velvet, and she bought a bottle of champagne, and we had some Guinness. And then on arrival in our Airbnb, they gave us a tiny little bottle of Prosecco. And I said, let's just try it with the Prosecco first.
Right.
So we did that, and it was crap.
Right.
So I'm glad we didn't waste the champagne.
Right. We did a similar thing. When we opened this, a lot of people turned up, knowing that we are keen craft beer drinkers. They turned up with Prosecco. God knows why. Most of it we re-gifted. So anyone who has had a beef birthday recently and we've given you Prosecco, yes, we re-gifted it. But some of it that we were left with, we had quite a few tins of Nefarious Ninja number 9.
Yes.
Nefarious Ninja 9. No,
Number
Ninja.
99.
What I just tried
Yes.
to say.
Yes.
Oh, you got it right first time.
In particular with Martini
Asti Spumante?
Spumante, absolutely a
amazing,
fantastic
yeah.
black velvet.
It's
Yeah.
going to be a hard one to replicate, though.
Yes, but it was
Oh,
pretty good.
it was epic.
And we was drinking it in pints because
Yeah.
that's how you do it.
Well,
It's a strong enough beer anyway.
Yeah.
So
that started our evenings drinking.
Yes.
there's 10 of us in this room, and there's only 9 little
Aw.
muffins. But
I'll forego mine. I don't eat cakes when I'm drinking. So,
he says no. So that's the upcoming Blackfest Stout.
no, have you shown it? Can we see this?
You can take one out if you want.
You got it on camera. I've seen it up there. And these are baked by Wayne.
Baked by Wayne.
Unfair hand. Yeah.
If they're terrible, it wasn't me. But we forgot to bring the candles, so apologies. So happy birthday anyway.
One thing
Thank
I
you.
can tell though is bloody hell,
It's-
tense, aren't they?
Some weight to eyes.
You might not want to go swimming.
No hot tubs.
No hot tub afterwards.
The hot tub might be out of the question after this. Yeah.
So anyway, thanks everyone in the audience. Thanks to our
Yes.
hosts.
Thank
and
you, everybody.
thanks everybody at home.
Yes.
Thank you guys.
Thank
See
you
you next
too,
time.
guys,
God
for
bless
coming.
you.
Thank you.